Chapter 1990. Whoosh, the eternal ship cut through the void and flew toward the endless starry sky. Where was he going? The upper world. Jun Changshao had not been back for a long time since he brought Junren Tonggu and the others to the eternal world. In fact, this place was just a foothold in the long journey of life. If not for the appearance of the mysterious person, he would not have gone back. Could it be the celestial demonic emperor? On the way, Jun Changshao thought. He dared to make such a guess because that guy was injured and would not come out openly. He would hide in a relatively remote area. The upper universe is so big and there are so many remote places. Why would he choose the upper world? The system asked. Jun Changshao explained, he should know that I lived there. Maybe he is not just recuperating, but also taking revenge. The system was silent. He was almost killed by the great saint. It was possible that he would do something extreme in anger. My son. At this time, Gongsun Ruoli said, how long will it take to reach the upper world? Not only did she come, but Zhang San also came. Jun Changshao did not agree with the two elders at first. If they really met the celestial demonic emperor, it would only bring danger to them. Gongsun Ruoli said, your father and I met in the upper world. There are too many memories there. Okay. Jun Changshao had to bring the two elders along. In fact, Gongsun Ruoli decided to stay in the upper world for the time being. She did not plan to return to the eternal world because she was worried that Zhang San and her son would be exposed if they kept in touch. That matter must be kept secret. Mother. Jun Changshao replied with a smile, we'll be there in a few hours. The upper world. There were many changes. Many sects emerged like bamboo shoots after the rain. Thanks to Jun Changshao destroying the 10 immortal sects, all kinds of restrictions were broken, and the later generations had a chance to develop. The decline of the old forces naturally provided room for the new forces to grow. Soon, there would be hundreds of flowers competing in this plain. Of course. People would not forget the person who changed the structure of the upper world. Although he had left with his sect, they still regarded the Phoenix Perch Immortal Mountain where he used to live as a martial arts holy land. What a coincidence. Today was the anniversary. Martial artists from all over rushed over. They stood outside the crater that seemed to have been directly hollowed out by some kind of power. Their faces were solemn and respectful. Friend, what is the meaning of this? Someone in the crowd asked in a low voice. Outsiders. I've been away from home for hundreds of years and have just returned. No wonder. The person who was asked lowered his voice and explained, this place is known as the Myriad Ancient Immortal Mountain. Isn't it Feng Qi Immortal Mountain? That was in the past. In recent years, Jun Patriarch changed it to the Sect of all times. Jun Patriarch? This is an incredible great figure. He brought a great mountain with him from the lower realm and then established his sect here. Is it that exaggerated? Exaggerate? It's just the beginning. After Jun Changshao ascended with his sect, the development of the sect, and the annihilation of the 10 great immortal sects, one could tell from his expression that even though a long time had passed and he had talked about it countless times, he still couldn't calm down when he talked about it. After the inquirer learned about it, he left the Myriad Ancient Immortal Mountain and sat alone on a mountain. He sighed and said, I didn't expect that guy to ascend from the lower realm. Why did he show the passerby? Because, he was the mysterious person mentioned in the intelligence. His real identity was the red-haired man who was killed by Neza once. Is it fate? The red-haired man smiled bitterly. In order to obtain freedom, he went to kill Jun Changshao. In the end, the other party made a name for himself in the upper realm where he once lived. What he didn't expect was that he had turned the upper realm upside down in just a few decades after his ascension and even overthrew the rule of the 10 great immortal sects. No wonder. The red-haired man said, he dares to go against the celestial demonic emperor. After understanding the development of Jun Changxiao's development, he deeply realized that the other party was not an ordinary person. It seems that the person who changed the situation of the universe according to the divination of the prophet should be him. The red-haired man shook his head and said, "Unfortunately, he appeared too late. The celestial demonic emperor has already comprehended the devouring heaven demon technique." It was undeniable that Jun Changxiao was powerful. But it was also undeniable that the celestial demonic emperor was even more unfathomable. As long as the upper realm of the universe still existed, it would become a meal on his plate to become stronger. Sigh. The red-haired man got up and locked onto the East Sea. In his memory, the whirlpool that connected to the stone statue race should be in that sea area. However, when he rushed over, he couldn't find it after searching for half a day. Instead, he saw many martial artists who were cultivating. Strange. The red-haired man frowned. According to the rules set by the human race and the stone statue race a long time ago, martial artists couldn't casually enter the sea area where the stone statue domain was located. Why were they so unscrupulous? Could it be that Jun Changxiao not only took care of the 10 great immortal sects, but also the major races? Judging from the way that guy destroyed the 10 great immortal sects, if he really wanted to touch the stone statue race, he would definitely not show mercy. And Ruoli's temper was very fierce, so she would definitely not give in. She was probably already, thinking of this. The red-haired man's eyes were filled with killing intent and anger. And his son. Was he also? The red-haired man didn't dare to think about it. There was a sharp pain in his heart. Calm down. Ruoli and his son might still be alive. He couldn't be too pessimistic. The red-haired man adjusted his state of mind and landed on a small island. He asked the martial artist who was resting, "Friend, if I remember correctly, this should be the sea area of the stone statue race." "That's right." That person nodded. "Isn't there a rule that no one can enter without permission?" The red-haired man asked. That person said, "There was such a rule in the past, but it no longer existed after Jun Patriarch came." He meant that the rule no longer existed. The red-haired man was too worried and subconsciously understood that the stone statue race no longer existed. How could he bear it? Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, a terrifying killing intent appeared around the red-haired man. The scorching aura of flames also surged crazily. The martial artist beside him was scared out of his wits. He was so shocked that he kept retreating. "Tell me." The red-haired man suddenly raised his hand and sucked that person over to his neck. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he said, "Was the stone statue race destroyed by the sect of all times?" He was really angry. If not for his injuries and weakened strength, the upper realm would have turned into a sea of fire by now. "No. No," the martial artist who was choked said in horror, "the stone statue race wasn't destroyed." The red-haired man was stunned. He restrained his killing intent and strength and said, "Since they weren't destroyed, why don't I see the vortex entrance?" "Because, the stone statue race left the upper realm with Jun Patriarch," the martial artist said with a pained expression. "Left with that guy? Could it be that the race had been reduced to slaves? If not for his bloodline, he and Gosheng really looked like father and son. Tell me." The red-haired man increased his strength and said with a cold gaze, "Is the stone statue race's patriarch still alive?" "Of course, Jun Patriarch is alive. I'm asking about the stone statue race's patriarch, not Jun Changxiao." "Jun Patriarch is the stone statue race's patriarch." The red-haired man's killing intent intensified. That guy actually took over the position of the stone statue race's patriarch. This meant that Ruoli had met with misfortune. "Ah!" The red-haired man raised his head and roared angrily, "Jun Changxiao, I'm going to tear you into pieces." Wait. Was his son alive or dead? He dragged the martial artist over and said with his eyes wide open, "The stone statue race's young patriarch." Is he still alive? To be honest, the martial artist who was choked was so scared that he almost wet his pants. He said with a sobbing tone, "Big brother, isn't the stone statue race's young patriarch Jun Changshao? I already knew who he was. He's already the patriarch. Of course, he's still alive. My son is still alive. Very good, very good." The red-haired man who was in despair finally found some comfort. However, Ga. His expression suddenly froze. Then, he opened his mouth stiffly and said, "You just said. Jun Changshao is the stone statue race's young patriarch?" "Yes." The martial artist cried. "Shua." The red-haired man leaned over and said angrily, "How can a human like him be the young patriarch?" This question really made the martial artist collapse. However, in order to survive, he could only answer, "Shouldn't the son of the stone statue race's patriarch be the young patriarch?" Boom! The red-haired man's brain seemed to be bombarded by thousands of lightning bolts. He was completely frozen in place. In addition to the thunder in his ears, the words patriarch's son kept repeating. After a while, he came back to his senses and held his head with both hands. "Jun Changshao is my son." Chapter 1991. Jun Changshao was the son of the stone statue clan leader. Didn't that mean he was his son? For a moment, the red-haired man froze on the spot as if he was struck by lightning. Never in his wildest dreams did he think that the guy who looked like he deserved a beating was actually his son. No. Why didn't they have bloodline resonance back then? A powerhouse at the red-haired man's level could feel that blood was thicker than water when facing his own son. Even if it was a descendant of many generations, he could still sense the bloodline resonance. But when fighting with Jun Changshao, there was no reaction at all. There was only one possibility: that guy was not his son, or Gongsun Ruoli's son was not his from the beginning. This thought. It was a little awesome. He added color to himself. Impossible. The red-haired man hurriedly dispelled the unrealistic thought and said firmly, "He's definitely my son." When the child was just born, he was in the stone statue domain. Although the time they spent together was short, the blood was thicker than water. What the hell is going on? The more the red-haired man thought about it, the more confused he became. He threw the warrior out and shouted while holding his head. "No. I must investigate this thoroughly." The red-haired man immediately prepared to go to the eternal world to find Jun Changshao and ask him about it. Obviously, because of his son, he forgot what the demonic emperor told him to do. Not only did he not go to a remote area to attract attention, he even prepared to take the initiative to go to him. Whoosh! A red stream of light pierced through the space. When the reader saw this, he cursed, "Is he going to pass by? Is he going to continue underwater? No way." The red-haired man flew out of the upper realm and stopped when he noticed the energy fluctuation. In just a few moments, Eternal crossed the void and flew over, and the two sides met face to face. Fate. Wonderful beyond words. Beep beep. The starry sky map of Eternal issued an alarm that there was someone nearby. Jun Changshao released his mind subconsciously and quickly locked on to the red-haired man. When he saw his appearance, he blurted out, "This guy is not dead. That's not right. How could he be alive after being pierced through the head by Hero Soul Neza? It's normal." The system said, as a top-notch powerhouse, he must have some mysterious life-saving methods. Unlike the host's disciple, who was revived directly at the Lingyan Pavilion. So what if he said it, but he didn't forget to ridicule him? Unlike Jun Changshao's surprise, Gongsun Ruoli, who had just walked into the cockpit, saw the red-haired man and her expression froze. Him. He was actually still alive. Humph. Jun Changshao took out the Shenyuan divine sword and said coldly, "Then let's kill again." This red-haired man was in cahoots with the demonic emperor. Furthermore, he had killed Xiao Ziji. Although he had been resurrected later on, an irreconcilable grudge had already been formed. Kaka. The hatch opened. If it were before, Jun Changshao wouldn't have had the confidence to fight the red-haired man alone. Now that he had broken through to the top level, even if he couldn't deal with the celestial demonic emperor, he could deal with this guy. Gongsun Ruoli came back to her senses. Just as she was about to stop him, Gosheng flew out with a murderous look. Seeing that the person flying out of the warship was the person he was looking for, the red-haired man was overjoyed. However, the next second, he hurriedly retreated because the Tiangang sword intent had already slashed over. When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. Jun Changshao didn't care about Jianghu morality. He would just give it to him directly and be done with it. Whoosh! Whoosh! The Tiangang sword intent burst out wantonly, turning into streams of light, tearing through space and pressing over. Jun Changshao was always at a disadvantage when fighting with the celestial demonic emperor, which made it impossible for him to exert his true strength. Now, he could fight to his heart's content. It felt good. The red-haired man had not recovered from his injuries. Facing Jun Changshao, who had greatly increased his strength, he instantly fell into a passive position. Although he could barely avoid the sharp sword chi, the process could only be described as thrilling. This kid has become stronger again. If it were my son, I would be very proud. Jun. The red-haired man wanted to open his mouth to clarify the matter, but Jun Changshao didn't give him any chance. Holding the Xianyuan divine sword, he charged over. The sword chi tore through space, and all kinds of special effects were instantly activated. Facing the celestial demonic emperor, he was submissive. Facing the red-haired man, he punched hard. If the heavens didn't give birth to him, Jun Changshao, the eternal sword path would be like a long night. Boom! Boom! The sword chi burst out and slashed down from a strange angle. Because the speed was too fast and too tricky, the red-haired man couldn't dodge in the end. His right shoulder was suddenly slashed with a deep wound. Puchi! Puchi! Jun Changshao took advantage of the victory to pursue. The Xianyuan divine sword frequently cut through the void. The sharp sword chi slashed through the opponent's body, leaving behind a crack. The red-haired man retreated with blood dripping, his face abnormally pale. He was already injured. Now that he was attacked again, it could be said to be one disaster after another. Die! At this moment, Jun Changshao turned into a sword light and rushed over. Hoo! The Xianyuan divine sword was not only infused with the celestial dipper sword intent, but also with the power of immortal sound. Obviously, he wanted to directly kill this guy. A strong aura of death surged in his heart. The red-haired man knew that he didn't have long to live. He was extremely bitter and thought to himself, if it was my son, so what if he died in his hands? Thinking of this, he gave up resisting and calmly faced death. If at this time, Gongsun Ruoli suddenly stepped forward and blocked in front of the red-haired man, the plot would be very melodramatic. Hoo! Jun Changshao rushed over with a heart full of killing intent. You killed my disciple, you must die. Son! At this critical moment, Gongsun Ruoli's cry came from behind. He is your father. Puchi, the sharp Xianyuan divine sword had already pierced through the red-haired man's chest. He didn't die the last time it pierced through the head. This time it pierced through the heart, there should be no saving him. In fact, no matter where it pierced, the red-haired man would definitely die. Firstly, that kind of life-saving ability could not be used repeatedly. Secondly, he didn't resist at all. After piercing through the chest, Jun Changshao didn't feel happy. On the contrary, the muscles on his face stiffened because he heard Gongsun Ruoli's cry. Although, it was just a little too late. Wah! The red-haired man spat out a mouthful of blood, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He also heard Gongsun Ruoli's cry and saw her from his current vision. Combined with what she said just now, it proved that this young man in front of him was his son. Damn it. Too melodramatic. The author almost couldn't continue writing. Mother. Jun Changshao turned his head stiffly and said, "What, did you say?" Gongsun Ruoli stopped in the distance and looked at the red-haired man who was covered in blood and pierced through the chest. Tears flowed down her face uncontrollably. He is your biological father. Then what about Zhang San? Jun Patriarch. Zhang San flew out of Eternal and said awkwardly, Madame Gongsun was afraid that you would blame yourself for killing your father, so she asked me to impersonate you. Jun Changshao was on the verge of collapse. After all this time, this guy is my father. Doesn't that mean I killed my father again? Luckily, his reaction was fast enough and he moved to the side a little. With his cultivation, he shouldn't die. Just as he was thinking, the red-haired man whose chest was pierced by the Shenyuan divine sword suddenly dropped his head and his hands hung down naturally. Hey, hey! Jun Changshao put his hands on his shoulders and shook with all his might while shouting, "Don't die!" Chapter 1992. The red-haired man was already injured, and he was slashed continuously. In the end, his chest was pierced. Although he kept a distance from his heart, he couldn't take it. So he gloriously fainted. That's right. He was still alive. The main reason was that he was strong and could withstand the torment. However, Jun Changshao collapsed. He had always thought that Zhang San was his father. In the end, there was an ultimate reversal. After careful calculation, this was Go Xing's second attempt at patricide. Although it failed, he must be blaming himself. This was not. He squatted outside the medical cabin, holding his head with both hands. His face was filled with pain. Patriarch. Zhang San walked over and comforted him. Those who don't know are innocent. Don't give yourself pressure. Shua. Jun Changshao suddenly stood up and pressed his face against the wall. He roared, "Since you knew the truth, why didn't you tell me?" Wu, Zhang San's entire face was about to be squeezed out of shape. He broke down and said, "Aren't I thinking for the sake of the sect master? After all, killing one's father and mother is an act that any child with a conscience will be destroyed by morality and ethics." Jun Changshao was silent. After knowing that the red-haired man was his father, he recalled his slashing just now. At that time, he felt quite good. But now, his heart was hurting. Don't misunderstand. Go Xing's pain wasn't because of the red-haired man, but because of Gongsun Ruoli. After all, he had already treated her as his real mother. As a son, he killed his father in front of her. How much pain must she endure? Especially. She knew the truth. How did his mother survive these days? Previously, Jun Changshao clearly felt that Gongsun Ruoli was deliberately avoiding him. At first, he didn't think much of it. He even thought that she might have met his father and that the two of them needed to be alone to cultivate the feelings that they had missed. Now that he thought about it, he was afraid that she would be exposed. Secondly, she didn't dare to face the son who killed her father. Jun Changshao's judgment was right. Gongsun Ruoli had these two attitudes. Every time she recalled the scene of the red-haired man being killed, she would feel heart-wrenching pain. For her son. She had endured too much pain. Fortunately, the red-haired man did not die after repeatedly jumping sideways. Then, the crime of patricide would naturally not exist. Sitting in the medical cabin, Gongsun Ruoli stared at the red-haired man whose breathing was gradually returning to normal. A smile finally appeared on her haggard face. Ever since he used Zhang San to impersonate him, he had to force a smile every time. Mother. Jun Changshao walked in and said remorsefully, "I'm sorry. My son didn't do anything wrong. Gongsun Ruoli turned around and said with a doting expression, there's no need to apologize. Son. Gongsun Ruoli interrupted with a smile, our family is finally reunited. This smile came from the inside out. Seeing his mother's happy appearance, Jun Changshao felt a lot better in his heart. He smiled and said, yes, our family of 3 has been reunited. Congratulations. Zhang San cupped his hands and said. However, when he followed Jun Changshao out, he was pressed against the wall again, and heard the latter roar, how much have you taken advantage of me? Go Xing finally regained his senses. He had called him father for nothing these days. Patriarch. Zhang San broke down and howled, I was helpless too. Humph! Jun Changshao released his hand and said, go to the discipline hall to receive your punishment when you return. Ah! Zhang San instantly collapsed to the ground. After becoming the hall master, he did not fully understand the entire sect, but he had a deep impression of the discipline hall. The hall master of the Spirit Beast Hall seemed to have been sent there by Yuan Gongzi because his clothes had been torn off. He kept crying and making a fuss on the way. It must have been very scary. The red-haired man was unconscious for more than half a month. During this time, Gongsun Ruoli stayed by his side and took care of him. To be honest, she was very happy. However, when she looked at that face every day and thought of how he had abandoned her and her son, the hatred that had dissipated immediately returned. Cough. The red-haired man finally woke up. When he opened his eyes and saw Gongsun Ruoli, he said guiltily, I'm sorry. Swish. Gongsun Ruoli pulled him up and brought a bowl of medicine to his mouth. She said coldly, open your mouth. Ah. The red-haired man was very obedient. After drinking the medicine, his face was so bitter that it twisted his whole face. Plop. Gongsun Ruoli threw him down and stood up. 3 bowls a day. Seeing that she was about to leave, the red-haired man grabbed her hand and said, can you forgive me for leaving without saying goodbye? Gongsun Ruoli stopped in her tracks, her bright eyes filled with anger. She wanted to turn around and punch this heartless man. However, considering that he had just woken up, she suppressed this thought and said lightly, if not for the fact that you were afraid that your son would bear the crime of killing his father, you would have been dead long ago. Yes. The red-haired man blamed himself. I should die 1,000 times for abandoning you and leaving. It's good that you know. After saying this, Gongsun Ruoli turned and left. Ruoli. The red-haired man lying on the sickbed looked at the graceful figure that gradually disappeared into the distance. He said with difficulty, do you think I still have a chance? Gongsun Ruoli did not speak. After leaving the medical cabin, she let out a long sigh of relief. From the current situation, he should be fine. Women. Her heart was indeed very complicated. That, after knowing that the red-haired man had woken up, Jun Changshao came to visit. He sat by the side and hesitated for a while, not knowing what to say. He had almost killed him twice. Now that they were meeting as father and son, it was really awkward. The red-haired man did not have such a mentality. On the contrary, looking at his grown son who was even stronger than him, a gratified smile appeared on his pale face. Do you want oranges? No. Oh. Jun Changshao fell silent. Son, the red-haired man said guiltily. Father is not a good father. Let bygones be bygones, Jun Changshao said. The most important thing now is for the family to stay together and be happy. Happy? The red-haired man said dejectedly, I'm afraid that's impossible. What do you mean? Jun Changshao immediately saw that there was something fishy about this. Father was too arrogant and went to challenge the Sky Devil Emperor alone. In the end, not only did I lose to him, I also lost the most important thing to a man, the red-haired man said regretfully. Huh. Jun Changshao subconsciously looked down and was secretly shocked. It can't be. Seeing this, the red-haired man knew that this guy had misunderstood and hurriedly explained. I lost the dignity of a man and also my conscience. Jun Changshao suddenly understood. Please, can't you just say it directly? Why did you have to mislead me? Bah! The system complained. It's the host's mind that's dirty, how can you blame others? Sigh. The red-haired man sighed and said, when you were born, I hoped that you would become a man of indomitable spirit. But in the end, I committed an unforgivable sin, especially. I killed your disciple. Speaking of this, he was heartbroken. He's still alive, Jun Changshao said. No need to blame yourself. Alive? The red-haired man was stunned. He clearly remembered the situation at that time. That guy with a body of steel was burned to ashes by the fire. Not to mention his body, even his soul could not be preserved. How could he be alive? Please don't dwell on the past. Let's talk about business. Jun Changshao suddenly became serious. Where is the Sky Devil Emperor hiding? In the face of his son's sudden question, the red-haired man did not think and answered decisively. Sky King Domain, Lava Abyss. Chapter 1993. Heavenly King Domain. A star domain that did not exist on the star map. The upper universe was very big. Even if Jun Changshao had been letting the members of Drizzle Hall explore, there were still many star domains waiting to be explored. Son. In the cockpit, the red-haired man said seriously, although Sky Devil Emperor is injured, he may not be easily killed. If we don't do it now, I'm afraid there won't be a chance in the future. Jun Changshao said. No matter what, he had to try, because once the other party recovered from his injuries and continued to devour planes without restraint, it would definitely lead to a disaster. To put it bluntly, Jun Changshao still did not have the strength to fight Sky Devil Emperor, so he could only take his life while he was weak. All right. Seeing that his son was determined, the red-haired man immediately walked to the star map and pointed to a rather remote area, saying, this is the Heavenly King Domain. Okay. Jun Changshao said, I'll send the two elders back to the sect first. It was impossible to bring his parents to deal with Sky Devil Emperor. What if there was an accident? Go Sheng was not worried about him. In fact, before Monkey King came to save him, taking out the soul bomb meant that he was prepared to sacrifice himself, so he had long been indifferent to life and death. As long as he got rid of Sky Devil Emperor, he would have no regrets even if he died. This was righteousness. Half a month later. Eternal stopped at the main peak of the sect of all times. Many disciples came to welcome him. When they saw the red-haired man walking down from the warship, their eyes were filled with astonishment. Wasn't this guy dead? Why was he still alive? The same. When the red-haired man saw Xiao Ziji, he was also stunned. It turned out that his son was not deliberately comforting him. His disciple really came back to life. He had the ability to do it. How did a disciple come back to life? Sigh. My son is amazing. What? In the main hall of the sect, Ryu Sinan and the other upper echelons learned that the red-haired man was the patriarch's biological father, and their expressions were completely stiff. The news quickly spread throughout the sect. Damn! When Su Xiaomao learned about it, he howled, I guessed it at the time. Both the disciples and the readers had guessed that the red-haired man was the patriarch's father because Gong Sun Roa, who was in seclusion at that time, suddenly flew out, and the result was forcefully reversed. Where is Zhang San? Impersonating the patriarch's father is definitely bad luck. Don't say that. I just saw him go to the discipline hall by himself. Great, Hall Master Z finally has a companion. Speaking of Hall Master Z, one had to explain why he was punished. The reason was because he was completing a legendary mission and the entire Sect's cultivation base suddenly increased greatly. He couldn't help but tear apart his clothes and was caught red-handed by Yuan Gongzi. For this kind of knowingly vile behavior, it was no longer as simple as punishing them with a beast pill. Instead, it was a direct punishment. Sigh. The high-level disciples were all showing off, while Z was the only one getting beaten up. After Jun Changshao arranged for his parents, he did not stop at all and set off for the Heavenly King domain. "I'll go with you." Rows of flowers chased after him. She knew that her husband wanted to find the celestial devil emperor. If he found him, a battle would be inevitable, and she could help him. "Who will take care of the sect if you go?" "The deputy patriarch." Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "There are some things that only the patriarch's wife can make the decision." Rose of Flowers was silent. Her husband was determined not to let her go. "The celestial devil emperor's injuries are very serious. As long as we find him, I can handle it alone." Jun Changshao said, "You can stay and take care of the two elders." "Okay." Rose of Flowers dispelled the idea of accompanying him. However, after watching her husband walk onto Eternal, she shouted, "You must come back safely." Jun Changshao stopped and said, "Kill the celestial devil emperor, and we will make up for the wedding." Rose of Flowers's cheeks turned red. In fact, Jun Changshao had promised before that he would hold a grand wedding and let the big shots of the upper universe give as much as they wanted. Although she didn't care, she thought that if that day really came, she would be shy, right? Whoosh Eternal tore through space and merged into the endless universe. The patriarch left again. At the back of the mountain, Su Xiaomua said helplessly. He wanted to accompany the patriarch to deal with the celestial devil emperor more than Rose of Flowers, but because of the limit of his strength, he could only stay in the sect. How could the other disciples not think so? If they were going to deal with a top-level plane, they could be useful, but against the celestial devil emperor, they could only cheer from the back. "Don't just stand there," Li Qingyang said, "Hurry up and cultivate." "Okay." Su Xiaomua and the others entered various cultivation secret realms. Since they couldn't help, they could only continue to become stronger. As for He Wudi, he sat in front of the Tree of Life, thinking about how to open the door. Previously, he had the chance to enter the bronze cauldron but chose to give up. The reason was that if he wanted to go, he would go together. But now, it was different. The door to the land of eternal life was right in front of him. As long as he opened it, the whole sect could easily enter. What mysteries are hidden in these remnant scrolls? He Wudi took out all 7 remnant scrolls and studied them over and over again. The 7 remnant scrolls guided Jun Changshao to the abyss of despair, brought back the tree of origin, and the sealed stone door, and then that was it? No. The mystery of existence had not been figured out yet. Jun Changshao didn't have time at the moment, so he could only leave it to He Wudi, hoping that he could figure it out. "Bah!" Little Shiver said, "Only now do you want me to study it, you are indeed a selfish guy." Patriarch. He Wudi, who had just obtained the original 7 remnant scrolls, said with a serious look, "I will not let you down." However, after Jun Changshao left, he suddenly remembered that the first remnant scroll that had disappeared in his hands was now back in his hands. That's not right. Why was this thing in the patriarch's hands? Could it be that it suddenly disappeared and returned to the place where it originally existed? He Wudi began to imagine. He had never thought that it was stolen by Jun Changshao. In fact, knowing the truth was no longer important. What was important was that he had completely acknowledged the sect of all times and was willing to give up the chance to enter the land of eternal life. Whoosh Eternal Life shuttled through the universe, while Jun Changshao sat in the cockpit, thinking about something. "What are you thinking about?" The red-haired man walked in. Jun Changshao was not surprised, because he had already noticed that he had come in before he boarded the ship, so he was puzzled. "Why did you follow me and not accompany Mother?" Because I no longer have this right, the red-haired man said bitterly. In that case, Jun Changshao said, not only did you lose the dignity of a man, but you also lost your soul. That's right. The red-haired man nodded. Then why did you tell me the location? Aren't you afraid that the Sky Demon Emperor will find out and your soul will scatter? Jun Changshao asked. Because you're my son, the red-haired man paused, even if it's fake. Jun Changshao was stunned. You can hide it from your mother, but you can't hide it from me. The red-haired man sat next to him. Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed. Ever since he acknowledged Gongsun Ruoli as his family, he had been trying his best to hide it. But it was still a fake, and he often suffered in his heart. Now that he was suddenly exposed, he actually felt a little relieved. Can you tell me the truth? The red-haired man asked. Jun Changshao said, you've lived in the upper realm before, have you heard of the plain battlefield? I have. The red-haired man thought for a moment, then said, it seems to be a special plane created by the realm hall in the lower realm, where mortals enter to fight and obtain opportunities. When I was still in the lower realm, I entered the plain battlefield and coincidentally obtained a strange stone statue. Jun Changshao said, later on, I fused with it in a daze and obtained the bloodline of the stone statue. Then, I was recognized as the young clan leader of the stone statue tribe. The red-haired man was silent. Since the bloodline of the stone statue existed and Ruoli recognized him as her son, it meant that he was already dead. Jun Changshao also thought so. As for why only the bloodline of the stone statue existed and not the red-haired man's, it might be because he used some kind of divine ability before he died to barely retain one bloodline. It's my fault. The red-haired man lowered his head and said in pain, I shouldn't have left and caused my son's death. Although I don't have your bloodline, I have my mother's bloodline. You can treat me as your son. Jun Changshao said. The red-haired man said, you're not my son after all. Jun Changshao expressed his understanding. Without bloodline, he naturally couldn't be considered a son. However, suddenly, the red-haired man looked up and said with a serious expression, I can give you my bloodline, then you'll be my son. Ah! Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. The red-haired man said, my son has my bloodline and his mother's bloodline. Since you can inherit one of them, you can naturally inherit the other. Come, I'll pass my bloodline to you and let you truly become my child. Puchi. After saying that, he took out a dagger and slit his wrist. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched violently. He thought to himself, is this guy crazy? Hua hua. Magna-like blood flowed out, but it didn't splash on the ground. Instead, it flew toward Go Sheng and stuck to his skin. It was a little fishy and hot. You should also have a fire elemental body. If you fuse with my 9 refinements lava body, your strength will definitely increase greatly. The red-haired man said, this way, you'll be more confident in dealing with the Sky Demonic Emperor. Jun Changshao was a little confused at first, and even a little reluctant. However, after feeling the rich fire elemental energy and the comfortable feeling of touching his skin, he could only choose to fuse with it. It was strange to say that the act of directly fusing with another person's bloodline should be very difficult or even impossible. However, after the blood entered the body, it produced a very good chemical reaction with the existing blood. It almost didn't take much effort to successfully fuse. In particular, part of the blood in his body seemed to be looking forward to the arrival of the red-haired man's blood. Jun Changshao calmed down and carefully analyzed it. Only then did he realize that the welcoming attitude was from the stone statue's blood. I understand. The system explained to the reader, since the birth of the 2 sons, they have inherited their bloodline. Although only one of them is preserved in the stone statue, they used to complement each other. Since the host has the mother's bloodline, fusing with the father's bloodline is logical. The red-haired man also thought so, which was why he dared to bleed so boldly. In the end, it was very successful, very smooth. Hoo. As the fusion continued, the lava-like flames gradually spread around Jun Changxiao's body. That feeling was so good that he couldn't help but want to roar. As for the red-haired man, after letting out the blood, he staggered back a few steps. His face was pale and slightly weak, but his eyes flickered with excitement. Although his real son was already dead, if the young man in front of him could inherit his bloodline, it would be equivalent to continuing to live in another form. Chapter 1994. Huff Huff. Jun Changxiao's body was burning, and his blood was also burning. After it was completely cooked, he would add some cumin and chili powder, and it would be crispy to eat. Especially that face, it should be the most chewy and chewy. Ah! Suddenly, Jun Changxiao screamed. Don't be in a hurry to clap your hands in joy, because it wasn't caused by pain, but because it was too comfortable. With the mother's bloodline as a bridge for fusion, the entire process was very smooth. Other than wasting some time, it basically wouldn't cause any harm. A few hours later, Jun Changxiao stopped burning, and his red skin gradually cooled down. At that moment, the red-haired man felt the resonance of his bloodline, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. My son is not dead. He is living in another form in this world. This kind of self-numbing feeling seemed a little ridiculous, but what could the red-haired man do? He could only use Jun Changxiao as his spiritual sustenance. Moreover, obtaining the mother's bloodline was a kind of fate. Giving his father's bloodline to him was only to deepen this kind of fate. Father. After fusing with the bloodline, Jun Changxiao cupped his hands and said, "Thank you." Calling Gongsun Ruoli mother didn't feel out of place at all, after all, he had her bloodline. On the other hand, calling the red-haired man father was awkward, because he didn't have the slightest bit of bloodline, nor did he have the slightest bit of resonance. Now there was. Then there would be no awkwardness or estrangement. How much has your strength increased? The red-haired man asked. A little. Jun Changxiao said helplessly. The red-haired man said, after reaching our level, even the slightest increase is very obvious. You don't have to be too depressed. Yes. Jun Changxiao nodded. The red-haired man said, while there's still some time before we head to the Heavenly King realm, Father will pass on all the martial arts and sacred arts to you. With the other party's bloodline, Go Xing did not hold back and began to listen attentively. Previously, Jun Changxiao had the Saint Flame physique. Now that he had fused with the red-haired man's bloodline and inherited the 9 refinements lava physique, it was equivalent to having 2 types of fire physique. Therefore, it was extremely easy for him to cultivate fire attribute martial arts and divine arts. Unbelievable. The red-haired man was completely dumbfounded when he realized that every time he imparted martial arts to his son would be able to easily comprehend them and even draw inferences from them, improving them to a certain extent. Genius. It was indescribable. Father. Jun Changxiao was still unsatisfied. Can you teach me holy fire judgment? The red-haired man had used this move when he attacked the eternal world. If Xiao Ziji had not been killed, he would have been trapped in it for a long time. If he succeeded in his cultivation, he might be able to trap the celestial demonic emperor when he encountered him, and he wouldn't have to worry about him slipping away. It's possible. The red-haired man hesitantly said, but this divine ability is extremely profound. Without a few thousand years of comprehension, it's very difficult to reach the threshold. I'm fine. Jun Changxiao said, I have time. All right. The red-haired man took out a crimson secret manual from his crotch and said, this is the secret manual for the Holy Flame Judgment. Jun Changxiao was dumbfounded. Hiding the secret manual in the crotch of his pants. That was a little weird. There was no other way. He had to cultivate it. Jun Changxiao could only take the secret manual and begin to study it. He succeeded in comprehending it the next day. So fast and so nimbly. What? The red-haired man was surprised. You've learned it? Whoosh! In order to make him believe, Jun Changshao gently waved his hand and condensed a flame the size of a watermelon in front of him. He said helplessly, I'm not proficient enough. I can barely form a fire domain of this size. The red-haired man was completely dumbfounded. After a long time, he howled in his heart, monster. Back then, he had spent over 1,000 years comprehending the holy flame judgment to reach this level. Yet, his son had done it in a single day. This was too much of a blow to him. The red-haired man didn't know that Jun Changxiao's rapid cultivation was not because he had two kinds of fire constitution, but because he secretly crushed the insight talisman. As long as the insight talisman's level was high enough, as long as it didn't appear in the system, he could comprehend it in minutes. One talisman is not enough. Then give me another one. In terms of cheating, Go Sheng had always been steady and never failed. What? How could he be proud? Awesome. The red-haired man was deeply shocked. He could only raise his thumb and say, You're indeed my son. When Jun Changshao was practicing various martial arts and divine powers, his body was also transforming every day, especially his paternal bloodline and maternal bloodline, which were becoming more and more compatible. The more perfect the integration of the two bloodlines was, the more his strength would improve. It had only been a month since he flew out of the eternal world, but Jun Changshao could feel the obvious changes in himself. I'm more confident to deal with the celestial devil emperor. Not enough. The red-haired man said, the lava abyss has the pure fire attribute since the birth of the universe. If you can absorb and refine it, your strength will not only improve, but also you can comprehend the holy fire judgment faster. Really? Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. In the lava abyss. The celestial devil emperor was hiding in a corner. He was hit by the Monkey King. Although he didn't die on the spot, he was seriously injured and extremely weak. At this moment, even an ordinary truth-seeking realm cultivator could kill him, let alone Jun Changxiao, whose strength was constantly improving. But a villain was a villain after all, especially one who had comprehended the sky-swallowing and transforming demon technique. As long as he was alive and given a chance, he could make a comeback. Jun Changxiao. The celestial devil emperor, who was healing himself, said angrily, wait and see. He had decided to hide in the endless universe after his injury was healed and slowly devour the planes until he had the strength to destroy everything. In short, the celestial devil emperor decided to eat chicken. With his strength, it would be absolutely dangerous if he really played such a trick. After all, there were thousands of planes in the upper universe, all of which could be used as food at any time. If he ate hundreds or thousands of planes and appeared invincible, who in the world could threaten him? Of course. If he wanted to grow and become invincible, the premise was that he couldn't be found by Jun Changxiao at this time. Otherwise, everything would be a fantasy. No. An ominous sign suddenly rose in the celestial devil emperor's sea of consciousness. Could it be that his hiding place had been found by Jun Changxiao? His intuition and desire to survive were really strong. That guy was killed by Jun Changxiao once. He may not be reliable. I'd better move as soon as possible. The celestial devil emperor had a plan in mind. When he was about to leave, he said in a deep voice, who is it? Foster father, it's me. Ling Li walked out from the dark. When the universe sacred war was held, many of the 81 foster sons of the celestial devil emperor were killed by the disciples of the sect of all times. Although there were no scenes in the following few battles, most of them were killed. However, this guy was still alive. Why are you here? The celestial devil emperor said coldly. Foster father, Ling Li said with a panicked look, Jun Changxiao is coming to the lava abyss. As expected. The celestial devil emperor said with an ugly face, that guy still found us. Let's go. He immediately turned around and said, to the abyss of darkness. Pucci, as soon as his voice fell, 5 fingers sharper than a sword penetrated his chest from behind, holding a bloody heart tightly. The Celestial Devil Emperor stood there in a daze. The camera moved slightly, only to see Ling Li's cold and twisted face appear, and he said ferociously, "Foster father, go in peace." The Celestial Devil Emperor's face was ferocious, and there was a stabbing pain in his chest. He roared, "Unfilial son!" Bang! Ling Li's 5 fingers clenched, and his heart instantly collapsed. The Celestial Devil Emperor immediately lowered his head, and his hands fell naturally. The final villain of the book died in the hands of the wolf he raised. This plot reversal was even more melodramatic than killing one's father. Chapter 1995. Celestial Demonic Emperor. A villain who wanted to start a new era. He actually died in the hands of his foster son. No one would have thought of such an ending. After all, it was too sudden and absurd. Even a novel would not dare to write such an ending. But it had happened. Some people would ask what was Ling Li's motive for killing his father. If he were to write about it, it would probably take more than a few chapters. In short, it was because of the woman he loved the most. Ling Li was not a fool. Although he had always vented his anger on the sect of all times, he knew that Mu Jin was killed by his foster father. He had thought of revenge, but he did not have the courage to do so. The reason was that he could not win. Today. Finally, the perfect opportunity had arrived. Ling Li's sudden attack was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. It had been accumulating for many years until it finally erupted. He had succeeded. He had killed the villain who had brought disaster to the universe. If Jun Changshao knew about it, he would probably vomit blood. He had said that he would save the universe, but the villain was killed by his own people. The Celestial Demonic Emperor had lost face, and he, the protagonist, had lost face. Jin, her. Ling Li raised his head and shouted with tears in his eyes, "I have finally avenged you." Swish. Eternal flew at top speed, getting closer to the lava source. Swish. However, not long after reaching the destination, a stream of light flew through the void and quickly entered the red-haired man's body. This stunned him. "Father, what's wrong?" Jun Changshao asked. The red-haired man was stunned for a moment before saying in disbelief, "My soul origin is back. It's back." Jun Changshao was surprised. Wasn't this thing in the hands of the Celestial Demonic Emperor? How did it come back? Or did that guy have a conscience and deliberately let go of his father's soul so that he could regain his freedom? Impossible. If the Celestial Demonic Emperor had a conscience, he would eat shit while standing upside down. The red-haired man was also puzzled, but he still could not figure it out. He shook his head and said, "I'm free." All these years, he had been controlled by the Celestial Demonic Emperor. Now that his soul origin was back, he was completely liberated. "Son," the red-haired man said, "you and I will work together to eradicate the villain who has brought disaster to the universe." All right. Whoosh Eternal continued to travel through the universe and soon entered the lava abyss. As far as the eye could see, this place was filled with lava and flames, just like the inside of a boiling volcano. Ordinary martial artists would find it difficult to adapt to such a harsh environment, but Jun Changshao, who possessed 2 types of fire attribute physiques, not only did he not feel the heat, he even felt comfortable as if he was bathing in a spring breeze. He didn't come here to enjoy himself, but to find the wounded Celestial Demonic Emperor. As such, he immediately released a powerful will, enveloping the entire lava abyss. No one. After searching for a long time, he found nothing. The red-haired man said, "Could that guy have sensed it and changed locations in advance? This is troublesome." Jun Changshao frowned. The Celestial Devil Emperor was wounded, which was the best opportunity to kill him. If he slipped away and hid in the dark, he would definitely become a big problem in the future. In this aspect, Jun Changshao was also very experienced. Therefore, he was particularly worried that the Celestial Devil Emperor would play this trick. Wait. At this moment, Jun Changxiao's will stopped at a remote area and found the blood stains that had not been evaporated by the hot environment, so he hurriedly flew over. As soon as he arrived, he saw a lot of scattered pieces, so he frowned and said, "What is this?" "Heart." The red-haired man followed him. "Whose heart?" Jun Changxiao was stunned. The red-haired man said, "There is only the Celestial Devil Emperor in this place, could it be his?" Jun Changxiao's eyes widened. The red-haired man walked over and enveloped the evaporating blood with energy. After a short analysis, he exclaimed, "That guy's blood. It can't be." Jun Changxiao was surprised, "You can even tell." The red-haired man said, "When the Celestial Devil Emperor returned with injuries, I happened to notice the blood on his body." Amazing. Jun Changxiao raised his thumb. The red-haired man enveloped the scattered pieces again, and after analyzing, he exclaimed, "It's very compatible with the blood, it's really the Celestial Devil Emperor's heart." DNA forensics expert. This was not the main point. The main point was that the blood and flesh were all from the Celestial Devil Emperor, which meant that guy had already died. He should be dead. The red-haired man said, "His heart is broken." Moreover, he then added, "This explains why your father's soul origin has returned to its original state." Hearing his father's reasonable words, Jun Changxiao was silent at first, then he picked up the cigar and lit it, slowly exhaling a smoke ring, and said, "Is this the peace of the universe?" Really, it was quite sudden. Here came the question. Who killed the Celestial Devil Emperor? Jun Changxiao did not think that guy would commit suicide. The red-haired man carefully observed the surroundings and said, "This should be the scene of the crime, but there are no traces of a fight." In other words, the Celestial Devil Emperor was caught off guard and was killed in a daze. And this is very likely a crime committed by an acquaintance. Jun Changxiao bent the cigar into the shape of a pipe, which could be considered as cosplaying Sherlock Holmes. "That's right." The red-haired man agreed. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, "If everything is as we guessed, the Celestial Devil Emperor died quite miserably, stabbed in the back by his own people. It's a pity that he didn't die in the hands of us father and son." The red-haired man was a little disappointed. "It doesn't matter anymore." Jun Changxiao breathed a sigh of relief and said, "At least, that guy is dead, and the crisis of the upper universe has been resolved." The red-haired man said, "I will make up for my past mistakes in the remaining time and accompany your mother for the rest of my life. I also have a lot of people who need to be with me." Jun Changxiao said. He had a lot of people to accompany, such as the rows of flowers who was about to have a wedding, and his disciples who were treasures. "With my son's strength," the red-haired man said, "he should be able to step into the land of eternal life." Although they had not known each other for long, he was completely convinced by Jun Changxiao's performance. As long as he continued to explore martial arts, he would definitely become another legend of the upper universe in the future. Jun Changxiao said, "I just want to live an ordinary life." He had once given up the opportunity to enter the land of eternal life, so for him, the higher level was completely unattractive. It was better to be a happy patriarch in the upper universe, accompany his relatives and disciples, and cultivate the future generations. "What about the main task?" the system asked. "Whoever wants to do it can do it. Anyway, I don't want to do it." Jun Changxiao looked up at the sky and imitated Shenting's tone, "I'm tired." Since his time travel, he was either developing the sect or racking his brains to complete various tasks, which made him physically and mentally exhausted. Although there was a main task now, there was no time limit or soul bomb, so he decided to quit. Alas! The system said, "You are so irresponsible." "Father." Jun Changxiao said, "Let's go back." First, absorb all the fire element here. The red-haired man reminded him. Okay. Jun Changshao did not hesitate and began to absorb the surrounding lava. A few days later, the pure fire element in the lava abyss was completely absorbed, and the two set off to return to the eternal world. On the way back, Jun Changshao felt relaxed, not only because of the improvement of his strength, but also because he did not need to bear the burden of righteousness. He was truly free, and even his soul was like a wild horse, galloping freely in the universe. At this point, the story should be able to draw to a perfect end. But in another dark universe, the monstrous devil Qi rapidly gathered and expanded, like a fetus that had just been born and possessed life. Boom! Not long after, the devil Qi exploded. Ling Li walked out of it, his eyes flashing with a cold luster. If I can complete the great cause of my adoptive father and enter the land of eternal life, I should be able to resurrect Jin. Chapter 1996. The Celestial Demonic Emperor is dead. In the Sect of all times, when Jun Changshao returned and told Jian Guishu and the others the news, they were all in disbelief. This was a great demon comparable to the heaven-devouring evil lord. He did not die at the hands of Jun Patriarch, but at the hands of his own people. This was a little unbelievable. Of course. Jun Changshao added, we can't rule out faking his death for the time being. He sincerely hoped that the Celestial Demonic Emperor was killed by his own people, but what if it was a trick? The red-haired man did not think so. The return of his soul was enough to prove that the Celestial Demonic Emperor was dead. This is a joyous occasion for the whole world to celebrate. Jian Guishu's eyes were filled with excitement. With the death of a demon who brought disaster to the world, the upper universe could finally return to its former peace. Jun Patriarch. Jian Guishu cupped his hands and said, thank you for saving the world. This kindness and merit will go down in history. Jun Changshao laughed self-deprecatingly and said, it's not like I killed him. There's no merit to speak of. That's not right. Jian Guishu said, if Jun Patriarch did not injure him, the Celestial Demonic Emperor would not have died. Ah. Jun Changshao thought carefully and said, it makes sense. I'll go and tell all the major planes about the death of the Celestial Demonic Emperor and let them know that it was Jun Patriarch who saved the upper universe. Jian Guishu became more and more excited as he spoke, his saliva flying out. Understanding. After all, the Sky Demon Emperor was basically unbeatable. However, the cheater Jun Changshao had managed to defeat him. He was like a ray of light rising from the endless darkness, instantly bringing infinite light and saving all the lost creatures. It was not wrong to call it merit. Doing a good deed, especially saving the world, had to be told to everyone so that they could worship, respect, and revere such a great hero. Jian Guishu was a little carried away. On the contrary, Jun Changshao was calmer. He had saved the world many times in the past and was not surprised by it. Not long after, the news of the Celestial Demonic Emperor's death spread throughout the upper universe. It can't be. Was he really killed by Jun Changshao? After all, there was no evidence to prove that the Celestial Demonic Emperor was dead. Not long after, they believed it. This was because Jun Changshao had officially announced to the public that he was going to establish a brand new upper universe, changing the existing rules and order so as to achieve comprehensive economic and strength development. Meanwhile, the news that Go Sheng was the one deduced by Wei Buzi, the one who changed the upper universe's structure, spread like wildfire. Combined with his commitment to create a new set of rules and order, and the assumption that he had killed the Celestial Demonic Emperor, everyone's doubts turned into doubts, and then they gradually believed him. Jun Changshao's method of changing the upper universe was also very simple and crude, and that was to fuse the various major planes and create a superlarge plane. The reason for doing this was that if the heavenly devil sovereign faked his death, he wouldn't be able to devour him. Of course. It was definitely unrealistic to fuse all the planes of the upper universe. After thinking hard, Jun Changshao decided to lead all the planes of the galaxies to a fixed area, with the eternal world as the center, and they would complement each other, so that the whole system would be affected. Son. After the red-haired man learned about it, he said, "You're going to create a domain." Domain? Jun Changshao was at a loss. Strictly speaking, the planes of the lower universe are called continents, and the planes of the upper universe are called worlds. There are higher-level domains above them, the red-haired man said. Really? It was the first time Jun Changshao had heard of it. The red-haired man said, "The universe we live in is divided into many galaxies. Although it's very scattered, it's actually a whole. If you integrate them and build a world above the worlds, it's enough to be a domain." Domain. It could represent a plane. At the same time, it also meant a region. Jun Changshao integrated the major planes, formed a super-large world, and arranged other planes around it. The scale naturally became a domain. Alas! The red-haired man recalled the past and said, "I was lucky enough to go to other universes and have seen extremely powerful domains. I was shocked by the experts there." There are other universes? Jun Changshao said so, but he wasn't surprised. After all, he came from Earth. Although it wasn't a world of high martial arts, it was enough to prove that there were other universes outside the universe. It was just that they couldn't contact each other. Yes. The red-haired man said, "There are many universes. They are usually defined as the first universe, the second universe, and so on. Our universe is very scattered because there are too many galaxies. Compared to other universes, we're at best a newborn baby. Are the warriors of other universes very strong?" "Very strong." The red-haired man said seriously, "I once traveled in another universe and heard that there was an extremely powerful cloud domain in one of the universes. The Yun clansmen living there were called the Descendants of God." Descendants of God? Jun Changshao said, "Is it so exaggerated?" "Son." The red-haired man said with a serious expression, "With your strength, you should go to other universes to explore." "Not interested." Jun Changshao aimed to develop the sect. Now that the demonic emperor was dead, he wanted to spend the rest of his life with his family and disciples in peace. Alas! The red-haired man shook his head and said, "Everyone has their own ambitions." Swish! Swish! Battleships and Diablo flew out of the eternal world. Their task was to pull all the planes of other galaxies over, regardless of whether the other side agreed or not. It was a bit overbearing. However, if he wanted to change the pattern of the upper universe, he had to use an iron fist. What's more, changing places would not cause any harm to the planes. Jun Changshao didn't stay idle. He began to look for more excellent planes and then discussed with the local realm lord about integration. The current eternal world was big enough, but he was still not satisfied. He had to build a bigger and safer plane to be the center of the upper universe. Jun Patriarch. In a certain plane, a realm lord broke down and said, "Can I refuse?" "No." The realm lord looked up at the sky and sighed. Remember this melancholy expression, because when his own plane merged with the eternal world, when he led his people to move in, and felt the indescribably majestic nature of heaven and earth, his face immediately changed into one of joy. "Oh my God, it smells so good." Whoosh! The eternal world would merge with a plane every once in a while, and its area and volume would continue to expand. At the same time, the planes that were not selected were brought back one after another and arranged in an irregular pattern. This was the initial structure of a realm. As it continued to expand in the future, it would eventually form a very large area and a new ecological chain. The realm needs a name. The red-haired man said, "Have you thought about it?" "Yes." Jun Changshao said without hesitation, "Let's call it the Eternal Realm." The red-haired man was speechless. This name was not technical at all. The relocation of planes of various galaxies to the Eternal Realm was in full swing. Jun Changshao rarely had time to relax. He called Yuan Gongzi and said, "Send invitations to all the realm lords." "Yes." Yuan Feng asked, "Patriarch, what's the content of the invitations?" Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and said casually, "In 3 months, I will hold a wedding in the Eternal World. I invite people from all walks of life to attend. At the same time, please bring enough money with you." As soon as this sentence was said, the whole universe, from the realm lords to the city lords of certain cities and even the patriarchs of certain clans, had a strong omen of going bankrupt. This day. This tribulation. In the end, it still fucking came. Chapter 1997. Sector Lord, what are you worried about? In a palace of a certain plane, an old man was puzzled. The Heaven Devil Emperor had been destroyed, and the upper universe welcomed a long-awaited peace. This should have been a joyous occasion, but the Sector Lord had been frowning for the past 2 days. Sigh. I don't know why, but I'm a little worried. The Sector Lord frowned. As a divine secret realm expert, his sixth sense was usually very accurate. The old man was shocked. Is there another crisis? I don't know. Report. The subordinate rushed in, knelt down, and raised an item. The patriarch of the sect of all times, Jun Changshao, sent an invitation. The Sector Lord was stunned. He had heard of the heaven-destroying Devil Emperor, a man who had contributed to the upper universe, but they had never met before. Why would he send an invitation for no reason? It was not difficult to see that Jun Changxiao's attempt to move all the planes to the Eternal World to form a new ecosystem was not completely completed. At least, this world had not been recruited. There was no other way. The upper universe was too big, and the planes of each galaxy were scattered irregularly. It would take a lot of time to integrate them. Jun Changxiao was also aware of this, so he made a 100-year plan to completely form the Eternal World within 100 years and let the scattered universe unite and prosper. Moving was difficult, but sending an invitation was easy. Especially when it was the Patriarch's wedding. This was a big deal, so the members of the Drizzle Hall in all the planes of each galaxy immediately took action. Their efficiency was amazing. If they could integrate all the planes at this speed, it would not take 100 years. What invitation? The Sector Lord took it, opened it, and his hands trembled. The invitation's content. Sent to XXX Station on the 1st day of June. Mr. Jun Changxiao and Ms. Rose of Flowers will hold a wedding ceremony. Prepared a wedding banquet. Invited XXX to attend. Auspicious time, 5. Auspicious place, main peak of the sect of all times of the Eternal World. Jun Changxiao and Rose of Flowers invited. Look at the invitation, how professional it was. What made the Sector Lord's hands tremble was not the invitation format, but the note at the end. The content was, if you are busy, a generous gift is available. The last sentence was the finishing touch. In particular, the word thick was written especially big, as he was afraid that the other party's eyesight was not good. It was not hard to see how much Jun Changxiao cared about the details and how considerate he was. Brothers, please post your emotions and tears on the public chat. This, Sector Lord's mouth twitched. After reading the contents of the invitation, the worry in his heart grew even stronger. This proved that his premonition was right. Sector Lord. After Gao Qian saw it, he said, "Isn't it just a wedding invitation? What's there to worry about? On the surface, this is a wedding invitation." The Realm Master's expression was abnormally solemn as he said, "In reality, he's asking for money." He was a veteran. He could see through it with a single glance. The other realms also received the wedding invitations one after another, and they all realized Jun Changxiao's intentions, so they all considered whether they should go or not. After all, she had saved the upper universe, and her wedding was considered a big event. It wouldn't look good if she didn't go. Go, how many gifts do you have to bring? Just as everyone was in a dilemma, they received news that many realms had moved to the eternal world. Especially when they learned that Jun Changxiao's attitude was very tough, they immediately made a choice. Go. They had to go. They could deal with the celestial devil emperor. There was no need to doubt the strength of the sect of all times. Now that Jun Changxiao was getting married, if they chose not to go, they and their realms would definitely be unlucky based on his iron-fisted means of moving all realms. Forced by despotic power. The major realms that received the invitations all prepared their gifts and took action. The wedding would be held in 2 or 3 months. Time was tight, and they had to get to the eternal world as soon as possible. Whoosh! Whoosh! For a time, from the macroscopic view, battleships from various galaxies and realms could be seen flying out and heading toward the eternal world. This kind of grand occasion was unprecedented. Later scholars called Jun Changxiao's wedding the wedding of the century that shocked the universe. The news of Jun Changxiao and Rose of Flowers' wedding quickly spread throughout the upper universe. Those at the level of sector lord would definitely attend, and many small forces and families also received invitations. Often, members of the Drizzle Hall could be seen in 8 different realms, each of them carrying dozens of invitations. Crazy, it was hard to describe. Sigh. After the Sky Devil Emperor left, Jun Changxiao came. The upper universe seemed to have returned to peace, but in fact, it had fallen into another abyss. Then, who could help them? There really was. This person was Ling Li. At this moment, he was shuttling through the universe, surrounded by pitch-black demonic aura, and constantly deducing the devouring Sky Devil technique in his sea of consciousness. This person not only killed the Sky Devil Emperor, but also refined his physical body. Although he didn't inherit his cultivation, he inherited the evil heart technique left behind by the sky-devouring evil lord. To put it bluntly, although the Sky Devil Emperor was dead, he had a successor. Even the former's understanding of the devouring Sky Devil technique had become Ling Li because of the refinement. He wanted to have invincible cultivation, enter the land of eternal life, and revive his beloved woman. What he wanted to do was to devour various realms like the Sky Devil Emperor. Sigh. The demon slayer had become a demon in the end. Speaking of which, Jun Changxiao didn't consider who killed the Sky Devil Emperor. He naturally thought about it, and even thought about Ling Li and his other adopted sons, but he didn't take it to heart. The reason was that the great demon was dead, and the remaining little wolf cubs couldn't do much. Even if they came to seek revenge, they could beat him up. In fact, Jun Changxiao really didn't expect that Ling Li would inherit the devouring Sky Devil technique and become the second Sky Devil Emperor. Godfather. You're too arrogant. And I'm different from you. On the way, Ling Li said coldly, I want to become stronger without anyone knowing. I want to have absolute invincible strength before I unify the upper universe. Whoosh! The black light shuttled through the universe and landed on a deserted realm. This place used to be glorious, but it didn't have eternal prosperity. Later, it declined for various reasons until it became a ruin that no one cared about. Whoosh! Ling Li squatted down and inserted his 10 fingers. Whoosh! Whoosh! He used the same method as the Sky Devil Emperor and completely devoured it in a short time. It was difficult for this kind of godforsaken realm to provide boundless energy, but Ling Li was very satisfied because it wasn't easy to be discovered. As long as he persevered, he would become invincible one day. He had to call him an expert when it came to such methods. In fact, the Sky Devil Emperor did die because of his arrogance. If he had chosen to keep a low profile like Ling Li and secretly devoured realms, he might not have been caught by Jun Changxiao. But on the other hand, with the Sky Devil Emperor's previous strength and control of several top realms, he could totally unify the upper universe. It was understandable that he was arrogant. If he had to blame someone, he could only blame himself for running into an unsolvable cheat. But what about Ling Li? Would he be able to develop and grow in an extremely wretched manner? Would he be able to give Jun Changshao a fatal blow when the end was near? Would he be able to end his legendary and sinful life? Let's talk about it later. Let's talk about the eternal world first. There were only 10 days before the wedding. The whole sect was decorated with colorful and bright colors. Even the magically modified sound system was playing jubilant background music. Elder Wei. In the small pavilion in the herb field, Jun Changxiao's legs kept shaking. He said, "I'm a little nervous." The closer the wedding was, the more nervous and flustered he was. After all, it was the first time he took the initiative to get married. He had no experience in this aspect. Elder Wei shook his head. He roared in his heart, "I've never been married. Why are you asking me?" Patriarch. Although Elder Wei had never been married, it didn't prevent him from giving advice. He said, "I'll give you 3 words, calm down." Jun Changshao rolled his sexy eyes. 1 day. 2 days. Time passed slowly. There were only 3 days left before the wedding day. Jun Changxiao's nervousness grew stronger. Every time he thought about the wedding night after the wedding, his face and neck would immediately turn red. Calm down. Calm down. Gosheng forced his thoughts to stop and then secretly said in his heart, "Why don't I just run away from the wedding? If it were someone else, it would be impossible." The system complained. If it were an idiot host, I would believe it. On the eve of the wedding, Jun Changshao sat in the study room and hesitated. The frequency of his heartbeat was obviously faster. He didn't know where to put his hands. His panicked look was actually quite cute. It was barely passable. In the bedroom opposite the courtyard, rows of flowers sat in front of the dressing table. Next to her was a phoenix coronet and a robe. Tomorrow was the day of the wedding with her husband. She didn't know how many people would attend and what kind of scene it would be. Although she was a little nervous, she was more happy. Whoosh! Suddenly, there was the sound of wind breaking. Rows of flowers ran out of the bedroom with her hair disheveled. She shouted at the sky, "Jun Changshao, where are you going? I have something to deal with. I'll leave the sect to you." "You!" Rows of flowers heard this and stomped her feet in anger. Jun Changxiao's sudden departure immediately alarmed the higher-ups and disciples. They came out one after another. Looking at the afterimage left in the starry sky, they all exclaimed, "The patriarch ran away from the wedding?" "No." Li Luoqiu said, "He went to do business." "What do you mean?" Everyone was stunned. Li Luoqiu said with a solemn expression, "According to the information just sent by the migration members, the green spirit world suddenly disappeared mysteriously." Disappeared? Jian Guishu's expression changed. He said in surprise, "The Sky Devil Emperor is still alive." Chapter 1998. Jun Changshao did not intend to avoid the wedding. Instead, he received a report from a member of the Drizzle Hall that a certain galaxy had mysteriously disappeared. Just as Jian Guishu had guessed, could it be the Sky Demonic Emperor? To be sure, he had to investigate thoroughly, even if it was the eve of the wedding. "I'm sorry." On the way, Jun Changshao felt guilty. The wedding was imminent, but he found an excuse to leave. He was such a jerk. Sigh. The system complained, "The host has a fear of marriage." Rose of Flowers, who was in the sect of all times, was angry at first, but she was relieved when she found out that her husband was going to do something important. She returned to the bedroom, touched the phoenix coronet on the dressing table, and said, "I'll wait for you to come back." Under normal circumstances, if she said this, she would probably be separated by life and death. The next day. The wedding day. All the major planes and forces gathered at the foot of the sect of all times. Some of them came early and stayed in the nearby cities, while others just arrived. Although they wore different clothes and had different styles, they all brought generous gifts. Everyone. After a while, Su Xiaoma appeared at the foot of the mountain and said, "We can go up." Everyone carefully walked up the stairs. The closer they got to the sect of all times, the more they felt a sense of pressure and heaviness. The foundation of a sect might not have been established for a long time. It mainly depended on the strength of the sect. After completing the legendary mission, the sect of all times had greatly improved. There were as many half-step divination and divination realms as there were dogs. Moreover, they had lived in the Iron Bone Mountain for a long time, so naturally, their aura had increased. It was not an exaggeration. With the current strength of the sect of all times, they could definitely sweep through the upper universe. It was just too terrifying. Therefore, for the patriarch's wedding, all the major planes and forces came from far away. So scary. The pressure is getting stronger and stronger. Everyone walked up step by step until they stopped in front of the gate with the plaque, Sect of All Times. They were greeted by a soul-shaking pressure. There were many powerful sector lords who came this time. Although they were usually tall and mighty, standing in front of the Sect of All Times, they instantly seemed infinitely small. "Please." Su Xiaoma smiled. Everyone looked at each other and walked in with reverence. However, just as he stepped into the Sect of All Times, he was deeply shocked when he saw the disciple who was in charge of opening the door. His indolent appearance and casual posture indicated that this person was definitely not simple. "Excuse me." A sector lord clasped his hands. "What is your status in the Sect of All Times?" "Him." Su Xiaoma said, "He's in charge of opening and closing the door." "Ah." Everyone was shocked. Such an existence that could shine in the dark night was actually just a disciple in charge of opening and closing the door. The Sect of All Times was full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. No wonder he dared to confront the celestial demonic emperor. Seeing that they were all staring at him with admiration in their eyes, Wudi was speechless. "I've already tried my best to make myself invisible." All the fighters entered the Sect of All Times and looked at the vast training grounds and the majestic hall, but they were all very calm. A disciple in charge of closing the door was already so amazing. No matter how grand the Sect of All Times was, it was still reasonable. "Welcome to my Sect of All Times." At this time, Yuan Gongzi walked out of the hall and introduced himself. "My surname is Yuan, Vice Patriarch." "Patriarch Yuan." All the big shots clasped their hands. They didn't specially add the word vice, it could be seen that they were all very experienced. "Everyone." Yuan Gongzi said, "Today is my patriarch's wedding, have you all prepared?" Some words couldn't be said too directly, it was enough to stop at a certain point. As expected. Everyone wasn't stupid, they all took out their gifts, and the Sect of All Times disciples were in charge of collecting and recording them. Spirit stones, ores, herbs, etc., everything was there. "Thank you, everyone." Yuan Gongzi clasped his hands and said, "You all can go back now." Hearing this, everyone instinctively turned around, but when they were about to lift their feet, they were all stunned. "What? Go back?" A strong fighter said, "Patriarch Yuan, we are here to attend the wedding." "Yes." Yuan Gongzi said, "My sect has already accepted your wedding gifts." Everyone almost fell over. Did he mean that the wedding was a wedding gift? Patriarch Yuan. An old man smiled and said, "This old man came from thousands of miles away, hoping to attend the wedding." They had already handed over their gift money, so they had to get some back, even if it was just a cup of wine and a bite of food. Otherwise, it would be too unjust. "Sorry." Yuan Gongzi said, "The patriarch's wedding has been postponed, those who want to attend the wedding, please go back and wait for the notice." When this sentence was said, all the fighters instantly cracked. Fuck. The wedding was postponed. Why didn't they say anything in advance? Also, since they weren't going to get married, why did they still take our gift money? This was robbery. It was a blatant robbery. Everyone's anger was immediately written on their faces, but when they saw the sect of all time's disciples surrounding them, shaking their shoulders and shaking their heads, looking fierce, they quickly retreated. That's fine. The old man said tactfully, this old man will come another day. After saying that, he took small steps and left. As soon as he left, everyone hurriedly followed. Just as they walked out of the mountain gate, they heard Yuan Gongzi's voice. Since everyone is looking forward to the patriarch's wedding so much, after choosing another auspicious date, we will definitely send the invitation again. Plop. Everyone fell to the ground. It seemed that they had to ask for their gift money again. This kind of extortion was all done by Yuan Gongzi alone, and it had nothing to do with Jun Changshao. At this moment, he had already entered the star sector where the plane disappeared and was actively investigating. It was a pity. When he came to the scene of the incident, there were no clues. Are you sure there is a plane here? Jun Changshao asked. Yes. The Drizzle Hall member said. What plane disappeared? Jun Changshao asked. The Drizzle Hall member thought for a while and replied, according to the warriors of the nearby plains, it was the Yingyuan world. It used to be very glorious, but it was almost abandoned due to civil strife. Abandoned? Jun Changshao was stunned. If the Sky Devil Emperor was still alive, his strength would not have recovered, and he would definitely need to devour planes. But was it useful to choose such a plane? Or, did the abandoned plane disintegrate on its own? Planes are the same as humans, they will grow old, get sick, and die. The system said, maybe it reached its limit and turned into cosmic dust. In that case. Jun Changshao smiled bitterly. I worried too much. Let's go. The system said, quickly go back and get married, don't let the guests wait too long. Jun Changshao could only turn back. On the way back, he received information from the Drizzle Hall, saying that a certain star sector plane had also disappeared. When he arrived at the location, he found that it was the same abandoned plane as before. There's a problem. Jun Changshao frowned and immediately ordered the disciples of the various star sectors to carefully investigate the abandoned planes. It was fine if they did not investigate, but once they investigated, they received shocking news. At least 100 planes had disappeared into thin air. The system was silent. It was understandable that 1 or 2 planes had been exhausted and collapsed, but 100 planes had disappeared. Even a fool could see that there was a problem. Patriarch. At this time, a member reported, 10 planes of the Blue Ocean coefficient have all disappeared in a day. A deserted plane. 7 second class, 2 quasi-first class, and 1 first class. Damn it. Jun Changshao said angrily, the Sky Devil Emperor is indeed alive. He was basically sure that the disappearance of the hundreds of abandoned planes was related to that guy. Now, it seemed that he did not intend to hide and directly attack the planes that had creatures and were not low-level. Whoosh! Jun Changshao flew toward the Blue Ocean coefficient at top speed. When he arrived, before he even reached the crime scene, he smelled an extremely strong demonic aura. Previously, it was all speculation. Now, it could be confirmed. Patriarch. At this time, another member of the Drizzle Hall reported, all the planes of the tailing coefficient are gone. Jun Changshao frowned. Although the tailing coefficient was adjacent to the Blue Ocean coefficient, there was still quite a distance between them. Not only did the Sky Devil Emperor rush over, but he had also devoured all the planes. This meant that not only had he recovered from his injuries, but his strength was also more terrifying than before. Go back. The system said, the host may not be his match. I can't go back. Jun Changshao continued to fly toward the tailing coefficient. Obviously, he wanted to stop the Sky Devil Emperor from harming the common people. Without third brother and Monkey King's help, how could he win? It was not a big problem. There was also the soul bomb. At this moment, Jun Changshao was already determined to die. The poor rose of flowers was still waiting for him in the sect. Her phoenix coronet and robe were neatly placed on the dressing table, and she was fantasizing about letting him see her most beautiful on the day of the wedding. A few days later, Jun Changshao came to a desolate star region. Why was it desolate? Because there used to be dozens of planes here, but now they were all gone. They had all disappeared. Damn it! Jun Changshao clenched his fists and said, "I'm one step late again." However, during this time, he gradually found a pattern from the disappeared planes, so he took out the starry sky map and carefully deduced. The final conclusion was that if the other party continued to act, it was likely that he would go to the star region where the eternal world was located. Oh no! Jun Changshao said in shock, something big is going to happen. Chapter 1999. Whoosh! Whoosh! In a certain peaceful galaxy, tentacle-like gloomy demonic aura suddenly sprang out. They passed through the void, merged into the various dimensions, and then sank deep into the soil. Looking at the other end of the demonic aura, one could see Ling Li sitting cross-legged in the universe with a smile on his face. In the past 3 months, he had absorbed countless deserted dimensions and obtained weak abilities from them. Finally, he had accumulated to a very objective level. In the process of devouring, Ling Li had a new understanding of the devouring demonic technique. Thus, he did not need to go there himself. He could devour from a distance just by releasing the demonic aura. What was even more terrifying was that he could split into many strands. This understanding was like adding wings to a tiger for Ling Li. So, after a short consideration, he decided to give up on devouring the deserted dimensions. Instead, he locked his eyes on the resource-rich dimensions. Jin, you will be resurrected soon. Unlike the celestial demonic emperor who wreaked havoc in order to achieve hegemony and pursue eternal life, Ling Li only had one wish in his heart, which was to resurrect the dead Mu Jin. For the person he loved, he chose to destroy the world. A proper infatuated lover. But from another point of view, he was a complete lunatic. Here, I suggest that the reader remain absolutely clear-headed and not do stupid things like destroying the universe for love. Withdraw. At this moment, Ling Li spread out his hands. The demonic aura that spread out was quickly withdrawn. The dimensions that were controlled quickly withered. An endless stream of energy flowed into his body. His strength was quickly improved. In fact, after absorbing the deserted dimensions, his strength had been restored to the state where the celestial demonic emperor was not injured. Now that he had absorbed the vitality of the dimensions, he was really stronger. Everyone was mocking Jun Changshao for being a cheat. But now, Ling Li was the cheat. Even Jun Changshao had to admit defeat when he saw the speed at which he increased his strength through merging the dimensions. It was not satisfying. He had to continue absorbing more dimensions. Ling Li left the completely absorbed tailing system and continued to fly to other galaxies. If no one stopped him, and if there were no accidents, he would definitely turn all the dimensions in the upper universe into his food until he peaked at the mystery of eternal life. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. In another galaxy, the tentacle-like demonic aura split into countless numbers and continued to merge into the dimensions. Then, it easily absorbed the origin and all the resources inside, including all the living beings. After a few times, Ling Li's strength had greatly increased. The most direct feeling was that the demonic qi was becoming more and more sinister and dense. At this moment, Ling Li had already surpassed the celestial demonic emperor at his peak, and he had not even reached the upper limit. There was still a lot of room for improvement. It was no exaggeration to say that as long as there was enough food, his strength would be limitless. The current me. Ling Li clenched his fists tightly and said with a cold look in his eyes, I should be able to fight with Jun Changshao, right? It was long enough. But because he was too cautious, he didn't dare to make a move. No. Ling Li shook his head and said, we still have to continue devouring existential planes until we have invincible strength. It won't be too late to destroy the Sect of all times then. He destroyed the Sect of all times not only because of the grudge between them, but also because he wanted to get rid of the biggest obstacle to his devouring of the upper universe. Swish. Ling Li went to 2 more galaxies and absorbed hundreds of planes. He reached a new level in the great art of heaven devouring and transforming demon. Devouring became easier and easier, and he didn't need to go out anymore. Jun Changshao should already know that I'm taking it so brazenly. Could he be looking for me? If I go to the eternal world now, will he be surprised? Thinking of this, a sinister smile appeared at the corner of Ling Li's mouth, and the devil chi around him became extremely terrifying. The galaxy where the eternal world was located. If one looked down from a god's perspective, one would find that there were thousands of existential planes in this area. In Jun Changxiao's idea, the central area was the eternal world, like the holy land of martial arts. It was surrounded by major existential planes, and then a transmission formation would be set up, so that it could be fully connected. To put it bluntly, it was like a country. The eternal world was the capital, and the scattered existential planes were the provincial capitals. Jun Changshao also had the idea of breaking through the space barrier between the upper and lower universes, including the mortal continent, so that it could become a county and let more creatures receive advanced martial arts education. He even decided to imitate Qin Shi Huang, unifying the language, the measurement, the planning of a new martial arts system, and the grading of treasures and resources. It had to be said. This was a huge project, and if it was completed, it would be a real domain. Jun Changshao would also be regarded as the domain master, as the founder of a new era, and his name would go down in history. Of course. At present it was still very far away. Especially when it was just beginning to take shape, it would face a fatal blow, because, whoosh! Whoosh! On this day, the majestic devil chi spread from all directions, and the momentum was so great that it was like a dark cloud passing through, and all major existential planes were suddenly plunged into endless darkness. What's going on? Everyone's eyes were filled with horror. When the darkness came, it was accompanied by a strong aura of death. Oh no! In the Sect of all times, the old man Taixien stood in front of the starry light curtain, looking at the area covered by devil chi, and said in surprise, hurry up and activate the realm protection formation. Buzz, in an instant, a super-large defensive bounded domain was quickly established. However, the eternal world was protected, but the newly migrated existential planes were not. They were like shaky boats, facing the stormy waves of devil chi, trembling. Let's go. Gu Zhaoxi said, let's go out and have a look. No. Jian Guishu hurriedly stopped him, this devil chi is very terrifying, maybe the celestial devil emperor is here. Gu Zhaoxi immediately gave up on the idea of going out. If it was the celestial devil emperor's subordinates, he was confident that he could fight them. Hurry up. Jian Guishu said, inform Jun Patriarch. No. The old man Taixien shook his head and said, the devil chi outside contains some kind of hindrance, and we can't send the message out at all. Jian Guishu said helplessly, let's leave it to fate. In fact, he didn't tell everyone that the devil chi outside was more terrifying than that released by the celestial devil emperor, which meant that his strength had been unprecedentedly improved. Whoosh! Suddenly, a flowing light flew out from the devil chi all over the sky, and they saw a swift and fierce figure hanging in the sky like a high and mighty devil king. TSK, TSK. He was a little surprised and said, why are there so many existential planes in this galaxy? Is it specially prepared for me? Ha ha ha. The gloomy and cold laughter resounded through the universe and into the ears of the creatures in the existential planes, which made them even more terrified. Warriors often had a premonition when they encountered danger, but today it was very strong, and there was no room for maneuver. The premonition was very accurate. Ling Li didn't inherit the villain's shortcoming of talking too much and chose to directly attack. Thousand Devil Chi. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Streams of devil chi emerged from his body and flew in all directions, quickly penetrating the space barriers of the existential planes, deep into the ground, and seizing the origin. Withdraw. Ling Li opened his 10 fingers. Whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, the existential planes locked in by the devil chi quickly withered and then disappeared into thin air in the universe. At this point, the existential planes that Jun Changshao had painstakingly planned and spent a lot of manpower and resources to move over had completely become food in Ling Li's mouth. This was a sumptuous meal, and after completely absorbing and refining them, his strength had increased significantly. Ha ha ha. Ling Li raised his head and laughed. He finally found the feeling of invincibility. In the Sect of all times, Jian Guishu and the others captured the scene of all the existential planes disappearing with their naked eyes or minds, and their faces were all filled with shock and horror. This was too terrifying. Don't worry. At this moment, Ling Li turned around and looked at the lonely eternal world, his eyes burning with passion. It's your turn. Although they had swallowed a lot of existential planes just now, it was after all just an appetizer. This superhuge existential plane in front of them was the main course, and if they could absorb it, it would be absolutely wonderful. Whoosh, whoosh. Ling Li spread his arms, and monstrous devil chi gushed out. The extent of the devil chi was the same as the size of the eternal world, and in the end, it wrapped up like a black cloth. To deal with this kind of superhuge world, they definitely couldn't absorb it by insertion, they had to break through it with a professional attitude without any blind spots. Whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh. The terrifying devil chi gradually attached to the realm protection formation. Because the power was too terrifying, one could clearly see from inside that the boundary was solidifying and then gradually distorting. The eternal world. Life was at stake. Everyone. Jian Guishu said resolutely, please prepare for the worst. No one in the Sect of all times was afraid, and their eyes were filled with a look of facing death. Creak. Rows of Flowers pushed the door open and walked out, her eyes filled with disappointment. Death. She wasn't afraid. She just regretted that she couldn't have a make-up wedding with her husband, couldn't wear a phoenix coronet in front of him, and couldn't let him see her at her most beautiful. The tragic background music resounded in the Sect of all times, and the atmosphere became extremely depressing. The camera turned to Jun Changshao. At this moment, he was desperately flying towards the eternal world, and the ominous feeling in his heart was getting stronger, as if he was going to lose the most important thing at any time. Suddenly, Jun Changshao seemed to crash into a certain space. What is this place? Just as he was stunned, the environment became unusually clear, and then people gathered together. There was Lu Qianshan. There was Li Qingyang. There were also Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, Gu Zhaoxi, Ryu Sinan, and other high-level members. Why are you here? Jun Changshao wanted to get closer, but found that the disciples were not real, so he frowned and said, illusion. The upper universe can't escape the catastrophe, and your patriarch will also die in this catastrophe. When the time comes, will you choose to sacrifice yourself for righteousness, or will you choose to be independent? A heavy voice came. Jun Changshao immediately judged that the speaker was the Seven Xian Holy Master. Especially. Wasn't sacrificing oneself for a righteous cause and staying out of harm's way just the choice he had made in the abyss of despair? Did they also encounter it? Or was what he was seeing now from the perspective of the high-level members and disciples when he was in the despair abyss? He guessed right. This was the scene when Li Qingyang and the others entered the independent space. At that time, he didn't explain it immediately because he wanted to leave a foreshadowing. Today, the answer could finally be revealed. If I sacrifice myself for righteousness, what benefits can I bring to the patriarch? Yi Xingqian asked. The Taishian Holy Master said, save the upper universe and gain immeasurable merit, then enter the land of eternal life. What about independent? If the upper universe is destroyed, you can survive. Make your choice. If it was me in the past, I would definitely choose to be independent because I would rather die than die. But now, Yi Xingqian raised his head and said, I choose to sacrifice myself for righteousness. Swish. After saying that, he was teleported out. At the same time, the number 1 appeared in the sky above the illusion. I choose to sacrifice myself for righteousness. At this time, Li Qingyang, who was standing in another area, also made his choice and was teleported out. The number became 2. It wasn't hard to see that this should be similar to a counting card. Sacrifice myself for righteousness. Sacrifice myself for righteousness. Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaomo, and the others all made their choices, and they all made the same choice. Therefore, the number kept changing. You all, Jun Changshao stood in place and watched the high-level members and disciples make their choices without hesitation. He couldn't control his emotions and wanted to cry on the spot because when everyone made their choice, the number after sacrifice reached 150,000. In the entire sect of all times, no one chose to be independent. It's hard to imagine. The Taishian saint exclaimed, so many people will make the same choice. A soul that is favored by the immortal Tao really has a unique personality and charm. Immortal Tao. Jun Changshao was stunned. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. From the appearance, it was similar to the 7 profound saint that he saw on the light screen, but the appearance was different. You are 7 profound saint. Impossible. It is as you saw earlier. My appearance is similar to yours because what you are doing right now is actually a continuation of what I did not complete in the past. Thus, you are me, and I am you. 7 profound saints said, if the one who saved the world is Zhang San, then the appearance on the light screen is naturally him. Jun Changxiao's heart sank. He always thought that he was the 7 profound saint. Now, it seemed that the system was right. This guy was the embodiment of all living beings. Jun Patriarch. 7 profound saints said, your disciple has made his choice. Now, please go and save the upper universe. How can I save it? Jun Changshao said bitterly. 7 profound saints' body gradually faded. He said, you will soon obtain the absolute power to save the upper universe. Swish. Swish. Right after he disappeared, Jun Changshao appeared from the illusionary realm. Streaks of light streaked across the void and quickly merged into his body. Ah! He screamed in pain. It was heart-wrenching. Boom! The camera turned to Ling Li's point of view again. Under the pressure of the billowing demonic aura, the eternal world, which had gathered many top planes, completely collapsed and turned into nothingness. At that moment, the Iron Bone Mountain and the sect of all times in the inner world completely collapsed, and countless creatures were annihilated. This was the real destruction of a sect and a world. This was the worst loss that Jun Changshao had ever suffered since he transmigrated. The home that he had painstakingly built was gone. Strange. After absorbing the energy of the eternal world, Ling Li was quite surprised. Where are the people of the sect of all times? In the process of devouring the Iron Bone Mountain, he found that the entire sect was empty. He did not see a single person. Could it be that they had a premonition of danger and slipped away in advance? Humph. Ling Li shook his head and said, how can you escape from me? As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly frowned. Then, he quickly turned around and slammed out his palms. Boom! There was a sudden explosion, and the galaxy suddenly collapsed. Thump! Thump! Ling Li staggered back until he steadied himself. His eyes gradually filled with disbelief. He had just devoured so many planes, especially the eternal world. He was so powerful that he was invincible, but he was actually blasted so far away by a sudden force. Destroy my sect and my people. At this time, in the area where the flames were wildly erupting, Jun Changshao walked out with red eyes and said, "Unforgivable." At this moment, he was not alone. The higher-ups and disciples of the sect of all times who had disappeared were standing behind the patriarch like souls, forming an aura that was enough to shock the entire upper universe. When the eternal world was about to be devoured, Gu Zhaoxi, Li Qingyang, and the others used the sacrifice spell that seven profound holy master had taught them. Finally, they turned into streams of energy that penetrated the void and merged into the patriarch's body. At this moment, Jun Changshao had the support of 150,000 disciples. This was probably the absolute power that seven profound holy master had said would save the upper universe. Chapter 2000. In the abyss of despair, Jun Changshao had chosen to sacrifice himself. Little did he know that the higher-ups and disciples of the sect had also encountered a multiple-choice problem and had chosen to sacrifice themselves. This kind of highly unified thinking was hard to believe. From this, it could be seen that the sect of all times had always been of one mind. If it were in the past, Jun Changshao would definitely be moved. However, after accepting the power of the sect disciples, he felt even more grief and indignation. Grief because they had sacrificed themselves for him, and anger because the seven profound sage had made them choose death. Especially during the process of fusing the energy, the faces of every higher-up and disciple would appear in his sea of consciousness. They would smile and wave as they left. Jun Changshao's strength was constantly increasing, and the pain he had to endure was also increasing. After all, in his heart, the weight of family was very heavy. Lu Qianqian, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, Yi Xingqian. One by one, the disciples appeared in his sea of consciousness and then disappeared with a wave of their hands. It was as if the pain had pierced his heart, destroying Jun Changshao's body and soul. He could only hold his head and roar. The last straw that broke the camel's back was Rose of Flowers. She finally appeared in his sea of consciousness with her hands behind her back and a sweet smile on her face. She looked like an innocent girl. However, a trace of disappointment could be seen in her eyes. Perhaps it was because she did not have a wedding ceremony and did not wear a phoenix coronet. Jun Changshao was in even more pain. He was even more heartbroken. After fusing with the power of 150,000 disciples, his strength had increased to a very terrifying level. It was even more exaggerated than Ling Li absorbing the plane. It had to be said. There was no solution to this cheat. However, even if he was invincible now, Jun Changshao would not care. This was because he had always valued family. This reminded him of the saying, invincibility is so lonely. He was invincible. However, the person he cared about the most was gone. I want this invincibility. What's the use? Jun Changshao was still holding his head and roaring at the top of his lungs. His eyes gradually turned red, and his thoughts became extremely irritable. Die. I must die. Swish! Jun Changshao disappeared into thin air. The shockwave that erupted from his body instantly caused the star field to cave in. This power was indeed invincible. Back to the normal timeline. After Ling Li blocked Jun Changshao's punch, the two of them were separated by dozens of feet, and the aura they released directly suppressed the universe space. Jun Changshao. Ling Li said coldly, does it feel good to lose your family and your plane? Are you surprised that I have the devouring power of the celestial demonic emperor? My cultivation is even higher than his. Humph. The celestial devil emperor never saw me as a human being. How could he have expected that I would stab him in the back? Just a moment ago, he was still very nimble, but now he suddenly became more talkative. This was because Ling Li felt that he was invincible. Jun Changshao, who was standing opposite him, could not pose any threat to him. At the same time, he also wanted to find someone to talk to. After all, it was quite uncomfortable to hold it in. However, Jun Changshao remained silent. He looked at Ling Li as if he was looking at a dead man. TSK TSK TSK. At this moment, an extremely sinister smile came from Ling Li's body, causing the muscles on his face to immediately stiffen. My son. Do you really think father is dead? Celestial Devil Emperor. Ling Li said in fear, You're not dead. Suddenly, he hugged his head and screamed miserably. The energy in his pubes surged out uncontrollably and gradually condensed into a tall and mighty body. That's right. It was the Celestial Devil Emperor. This guy was actually alive. Pfft. Energy flew out of his body uncontrollably. Not only was Ling Li's body hollowed out, he also couldn't help but spit out blood. My son. The Celestial Devil Emperor turned around, revealing a cunning smile, and said, It's all thanks to you that your father was able to escape Jun Changshao's pursuit. Ling Li's face turned sinister. He had already guessed that this guy must have faked his death. Wrong. The Celestial Devil Emperor was really dead. At that time, when Jun Changshao chased after him, he obviously had a premonition. He was already injured and couldn't hide. Coincidentally, his adopted son came to assassinate him, so he simply beat him at his own game. Speaking of Ling Li, he killed the Celestial Devil Emperor, refined his body, and inherited the devouring sky and transforming demon technique. But he didn't know that the Celestial Devil Emperor's soul had long been stored in the mental cultivation method. This thing was like a virus Trojan horse, quietly lurking in the body and constantly absorbing energy for self-recovery. Ling Li constantly swallowed the planes, and his strength increased rapidly, which provided supplies for the remaining soul. In short, the stronger the former, the faster the Celestial Devil Emperor came back from the dead. To put it bluntly, he was just a puppet. Now that Ling Li took the eternal world and the Celestial Devil Emperor's soul was completely recovered, he didn't hesitate to activate the virus Trojan horse and take all the power his son had gained in the past few months for himself. The older, the wiser. He had to admit defeat. Poor Ling Li had been raised as a tool since he was a child, and he still hadn't gotten rid of his fate. The Celestial Devil Emperor leaned over and grinned, creating a new era is your father's lifelong wish. How can I let you, an unfilial son, do it for me? Ling Li clenched his fists tightly, and his eyes were full of unwillingness. He was so close to success, but the old bastard came back to life and took away all his power. Go to hell and find your beloved woman. The Celestial Devil Emperor clasped Ling Li's neck, and the billowing devil chi burst out and entangled him. Then, with a painful scream, he turned into nothingness. Ling Li. The last adopted son. Completely dead. Alas. The Celestial Devil Emperor shook his head and said, It's a pity that my son died when he just experienced the feeling of invincibility. You too. Jun Changshao finally spoke. From the appearance of the Celestial Devil Emperor, to the conversation between the father and son, to Ling Li's death, he seemed to have turned into a little transparent. To be honest, Jun Changshao didn't care about the story between the two at all, and didn't care who occupied or possessed who, because they were all dead. Phew. The Celestial Devil Emperor looked up and took a deep breath. The energy in his body burst out, filling his blood and meridians. The feeling of invincibility. An expression of intoxication and enjoyment gradually appeared on his face. Whoosh! At this moment, Jun Changshao appeared in front of him and punched his right fist leisurely. The speed of this punch was too slow. Not to mention the celestial devil emperor, even a truth-seeking realm cultivator could catch it. However, although the punch was very slow, the explosive power was very terrifying, and it even formed a space pressure that was invisible to the naked eye. The celestial devil emperor didn't care at first, and even smiled disdainfully, but when he felt the pressure, his smile suddenly froze. His body couldn't move. Oh no! The celestial devil emperor struggled hard, but the more he struggled, the tighter it became. Go to hell. At this time, Jun Changshao said. There was no emotion in these 3 words, as if they came from the abyss of hell. At the same time, the power gathered in the fist kept increasing, and the terrifying pressure directly tightened the celestial devil emperor and made a posture of stand still and wait to be beaten. Impossible. I'm invincible. Why am I restrained? The celestial devil emperor couldn't understand, and an angry expression appeared on his face. However, when his eyes suddenly rippled, he found that there were countless disciples of the sect of all time standing behind Jun Changshao. They looked real and illusory, and they were all making the same punching gesture. He got it. Jun Changshao's punch carried the power of the entire sect. Although the higher-ups and disciples had died, they were supporting the patriarch in another form, helping him eliminate the big devil who was wreaking havoc in the upper universe. This was sacrificing oneself for righteousness. It belonged to the strongest sect of all times. Whoosh! Whoosh! The punch that represented the end was slowly waved over, and a powerful force burst out, gradually shattering this galaxy and spreading to other areas. It was impossible to describe the shocking scene at this moment with words that could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. No, the celestial devil emperor roared in despair. He had just seized the power of his adopted son and experienced the feeling of invincibility. How could he be willing to rumble? Time didn't allow the celestial devil emperor to think too much, because Jun Changshao's fist, which represented the power of the entire sect, directly smashed his face, smashing his flesh, bones, sea of consciousness, soul, internal organs, and entire body. At the same time, several empty galaxies, unable to withstand the huge bombardment, all collapsed at the same time. This was the real invincibility. At this point, the big villain of the upper universe was instantly killed by Jun Changshao's punch. There was no gorgeous fighting process, because the disparity in strength between the two sides was too great. The poor celestial devil emperor thought that he was invincible, but he was still vulnerable in front of a cheat. Whoosh! Whoosh! The space shattered, and cold wind whistled. Suddenly, a piece of land appeared in the originally empty and messy area, carrying a towering tree and a closed stone door. The tree of universe's origin wasn't eaten. Thud! Jun Changshao, who killed the celestial devil emperor, landed on the ground and then knelt weakly, lowering his head and covering his face. Tears flowed through the gaps between his fingers and splashed into the slightly dry mud. That's right. Once again, he saved the world. But he sacrificed the sect, sacrificed everything. This price was unbearable and unacceptable for Jun Changshao. If he could turn back time, he would rather choose to sacrifice himself to protect the sect, his wife, and his close relatives. Pa! A hand rested on Jun Changshao's shoulder, and a comforting voice came, my condolences. This was a person with the word system engraved on his face and the word unification engraved on his cloak. That's right. The system that loved to complain. For the time being, it could be considered as Jun Changshao's only family. Everyone in the sect had sacrificed themselves, leaving only Go Sheng and the system. Sure enough, they were the true love that walked hand in hand to the end. It's gone. Jun Changshao said, it's all gone, sigh. The system sighed. After accompanying the host for so many years, it had encountered troubles and setbacks, but this time was the most miserable. His home was gone, his disciples were gone, and his relatives were gone. If this was in the early and middle stages, it would be a lethal poison. Ding! Congratulations to the host for eliminating the celestial demonic emperor, which is a disaster in the upper universe. Completion rate, 100%. Ding! Main mission completed. Just as Jun Changshao was at his most depressed, an emotionless notification sounded in his ears. In the past, this was the most beautiful sound to Go Sheng. Now, even if he was rewarded with a mountain of gold and silver, even if he was given eternal life, he would not feel any joy. Because although he was standing at the top of the mountain, he would not have any relatives to accompany him. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the main mission. You have received immeasurable merit and can make a wish once. Wish? Jun Changshao was surprised. In less than a second, he blurted out, "My wish is to revive everyone in the sect of all times." Sorry. The mechanical notification sounded, unable to be fulfilled. Damn it! Jun Changshao roared, "What kind of wish is it if it can't be fulfilled?" Calm down, host. The system advised, you can make a wish from another perspective, such as reviving all the planes and creatures that were swallowed by Ling Li and the celestial demonic emperor. That makes sense. Jun Changshao hurriedly said again. Ding! Wish successful. The moment the notification rang out, the shattered universe suddenly trembled, and then gradually recovered. Countless planes also began to reappear. Buzz! At the same time, the area where Jun Changshao was also changing. The soil under his feet rapidly expanded and gradually formed a super large plain. Obviously, it was the eternal world that was destroyed by Ling Li. All the races and cities were restored to their original states. The dead creatures also appeared out of thin air. They were busy as usual, completely unaware that they had died and been revived. It felt like a movie played backward. Jun Changshao was ecstatic, but when the eternal world was completely restored, he stood still like a wooden chicken. At this moment, he was no longer in front of the tree of universe origin, but standing on a slightly deserted mountaintop. In front of him were dilapidated buildings and a plaque that had fallen to the ground, engraved with the words, Iron Bone Jing Sect. Could it be, the system exclaimed, the eternal world has been restored, but also time has been reversed? Puff! Jun Changshao couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He thought that he could revive his disciples and relatives from another perspective. However, the planes and creatures that were swallowed by the celestial demonic emperor or Ling Li were restored, but they were not. Even the sect had regressed to the dilapidated state. What the hell is going on? Jun Changshao couldn't control his emotions. Even if he was extremely weak at this moment, even if he had no realm, he still had the strength to support himself. He clasped the system's neck and roared loudly. It used to be self-abuse. Now that the system had appeared, he could finally enjoy it. This may be because the disciples of the sect didn't die from Ling Li, but actively offered their lives to the host. The system said with difficulty. Ah! I'm going to kill you. Jun Changshao was furious. He had wasted a chance to make a wish. Come on. The system said, I'm willing to be killed by the host to vent my anger. Bah! Spit. Jun Changshao was too weak, so he could only spit weakly to vent his anger. An hour later. He lay on the ground like a puddle of mud. Child. At this time, Aunt Wang appeared in his field of vision, holding a bowl of noodles in her hand and said, Are you hungry? Woo woo woo. Jun Changshao cried like a child. A few days later. Jun Changshao had strength, but his realm hadn't recovered, so he cleaned up the Iron Bone clan inside and out. Although his disciples and relatives were not revived, the sect was still there, so he planned to protect it for the rest of his life. However, every time he thought of them and the past, he would always feel depressed. Especially at dusk, he could always see Jun Changshao sitting alone in front of the mountain gate of the Iron Bone clan, and his lonely shadow was infinitely elongated. Sigh. The system sighed, heroes are destined to be lonely. 1 year. 2 years. Time slowly passed. Jun Changshao was like an old man who didn't care about life and death, living alone in the Iron Bone clan. Because he didn't care about his appearance, his face was full of vicissitudes, and his beard was unshaven. One day, he sat in front of the mountain gate as usual. Hearing footsteps, he didn't even raise his head. "Aunt Wang, I'm not hungry." "Patriarch. It's me." Hearing this voice, Jun Changshao felt like he was struck by lightning. He raised his head with difficulty and saw Lu Qianxian in white standing in front of him. Although her aura was still cold, there was a warm smile on her face. "You," just as he opened his mouth, Li Qingyang walked up the stairs. Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, Yi Xingqian, He Wudi, and the other disciples followed. They stood in front of the mountain gate and smiled at the patriarch. Was it a dream? Jun Changshao subconsciously pinched his face. Pain. It wasn't a dream. Brother. The higher-ups of the sect, led by Gu Zhaoxi, also came. They scratched their heads and said, "Why is the sect so dilapidated?" "It's not a big problem." Li Qingyang took out the blueprint and said, "Page and I can rebuild it." "Then what are we waiting for?" Su Xiaoma shouted, "Hurry up and get busy." As a result, the higher-ups and disciples began to rebuild the sect. All kinds of building materials were sent to the mountain. Jun Changshao sat on a rock outside the mountain gate. Seeing them busy, he suddenly felt like he was in a dream. He thought to himself, if this is a dream, then let's keep dreaming. Hey! Suddenly, a clear voice sounded. Jun Changshao subconsciously turned his head and saw a rose of flowers standing in front of him. She smiled and said, "When the sect recovers to its former glory, we must hold a wedding." "No problem." Go Sheng said straightforwardly. "Patriarch." At this moment, Su Xiaoma stood in front of the newly built gate and said, "Do you want to change the plaque?" "Change." Jun Changshao jumped down and personally took down the plaque of the Iron Bone clan and replaced it with the plaque of the strongest sect in history. Come, come, come. Take a group photo. As a souvenir. On the newly built martial arts practice field, Jun Changshao held the 40-meter-long blade. There was a camera at the end of the blade. He and the higher-ups and disciples around him made a peace sign and smiled brightly. 1, 2, 3. Eggplant. The camera slowly moved back and finally stopped at the plaque of the strongest sect in history. It was the end. It was also the beginning. Chapter 2001. All the disciples of the sect of all times had come back from the dead. This was not a dream. It was the most real thing. Strange. Why did they suddenly come back from the dead? It had been a few years since Jun Changshao made his wish, so it definitely had nothing to do with the former. When something could not be explained scientifically, it could only be attributed to the system. It was strange. After everyone in the sect appeared, the system did not speak again. Jun Changshao tried to call out but did not get a reply. He felt that something was wrong and said, "Could it be, it sacrificed itself to revive the sect of all times?" No. Go Leftover roared towards the sky. Sad snowflakes floated in the air, and the northern wind whistled. Stop howling. At this time, the system finally spoke. Jun Changshao was overjoyed. It was still alive and did not sacrifice itself. Since it's alive, why don't you speak? I'm trying to deduce why everyone in the sect came back from the dead. Have you figured it out? More or less. Most likely. Why did it come back from the dead? If I'm not wrong, your disciple's death was not real. It was a test left by the seven profound sage to see if you can work together. Once the heavenly demon empress is eliminated, she will naturally come back from the dead. That makes sense. Jun Changshao agreed. There's another possibility. The system said, the host eliminated the great demon who brought disaster to the world. Because of the assistance, your disciple also received a lot of merit and naturally came back from the dead. Compared to the test deliberately left by the seven profound sage, this seemed more reliable. Everyone is happy. Jun Changshao smiled. All the planes and living beings that were destroyed by the heavenly demon empress or Ling Li came back from the dead. There were no casualties in the sect of all times. It was the most ideal ending. If one had to say that it was a pity. The sect of all times had lost its former glory. It was not a big problem. As long as the disciples were still alive. Not to mention the fact that the sect had fallen into ruins, even if they had no cultivation at this moment, they would stand at the peak again sooner or later. Was it that confident? Because there was still the system and various facilities and mystic realms. Countless years later, historians would define the heavenly demon empress's destruction by Jun Changshao as the first year of the eternal calendar. This eternal calendar referred to the eternal realm. This was because the world of the universe was still condensing, and after a few decades, it formed a complete operating system. As the creator, Jun Changshao not only integrated the upper universe, but also pulled the lower universe. From then on, there were no more martial disciples or martial masters in the mortal world. There were no more revolving core realm or truth-seeking realm cultivators in the upper realm. They now had brand new names and more detailed levels. The first was the eternal world. There was no doubt that it was the brain of the universe, the absolute holy land of martial arts. Secondly, there were many planes that had migrated over. They were scattered all over the place, and all of them had teleportation portals that connected to each other. Because the new system had just been born, each dimension had yet to form its own unique style, so there was nothing special to talk about for the time being. Just a little. Jun Changshao used the middle school and grand martial arts schools, which he had implemented in the eternal world, to operate in the big planes. This was one of the important channels for the younger generation to rise up and enter the eternal world. Of course. Gosheng didn't interfere too much with the development of the realms. He only set up the martial arts school, so that all creatures could have a way to cultivate. As for the families, forces and even sects of the realms, they could develop and recruit talents at will. Because the realms were close to each other and there was a transmission formation, it was as easy as visiting each other in the eternal realm. This also greatly stimulated the exchange of martial arts. It was only a matter of time before the collective sublimation. Perfect. Jun Changshao was like the creator hanging in the highest sky of the universe. He looked down at the new area centered on the eternal realm with a satisfied smile on his face. The system said, soon, this place will be unprecedentedly prosperous, and the host's achievements will be passed down through the ages. It's an undeserved reputation. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, I don't care. Bah. The system couldn't help but spit. By the way, Jun Changshao said, how did you come here? Is it important? It's very important to the readers. If you don't tell them your origin, even the perfect ending can be classified as a bad ending. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that I have helped the host and brought joy to the readers. Okay. Jun Changshao looked at you outside the screen and shrugged helplessly. This guy plans to remain mysterious forever. Time flew. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. The sect of all times was transformed by Li Qingyang and Page. It finally regained its former glory. The disciples cultivated as usual, as if the death and destruction they had experienced before had never happened. It was true. This sect had always exuded warmth and the smell of home. In these 10 years, Jun Changshao had completely recovered from the injury suffered by the heaven-destroying demon emperor. His strength was still at the top of the divine mystery realm, and he could be regarded as the number one person in the eternal realm. Whether he could be the number one person or not was not decided by him, but by the historians and thousands of living beings. The entire domain would not forget Jun Changzhao's achievements. His name had long been recorded in the annals of history, and they unanimously recognized him as the founder of the new era. He was another legendary martial artist after the Seven Profound Saint Venerable. Even the sect of all times was regarded as a legendary sect. Not bad. It's written very accurately. In the study, Jun Changzhao flipped through the history of the eternal realm compiled by many historians and saw that they agreed with his record and evaluation. You're really shameless. The system was speechless. Actually. Jun Changzhao put down the book and touched his chin. I can find someone to write an autobiography for me. Who? See you again. Year 520 of the Eternal Realm, May 20th. It was 520 years after the heaven-destroying demon emperor was killed. On this day, the entire Eternal Realm was in turmoil. There was no other reason. The legendary expert, the leader of the legendary sect, Jun Changzhao, was going to hold a grand wedding. No. When many experts received the hot invitation, they said with a bitter face, "Did we really give the money for the wedding last time for nothing?" On the day of the wedding, the entire Eternal Realm was red and full of joy. All the famous people in the major planes, including the families, forces, and sects, came to participate. Not only that. Before the wedding, the array hall had already prepared a projection screen in advance. All the planes in the Eternal Realm could see the real-time scene of the wedding. Historians describe this as a legendary wedding that had never been seen before and would never be seen again. Please welcome the bride. On the training field of the sect of all times, Jian Guishu, who was acting as the master of ceremonies, said loudly. In an instant, the noisy wedding scene quieted down, and the martial artists watching the screen all held their breaths. It was just a wedding, and the entire region was watching. This card was simply invincible. Not long after, a graceful figure appeared on the screen. The beautiful rose of flowers, wearing a phoenix crown and a robe, walked over with the help of a few female disciples. The long wedding dress behind her was at least a few meters long. There was no need to think. This strange wedding dress must have been designed by Go Xing himself. So beautiful. Everyone's attention was on Hua Rose, on that beautiful face that could cause the downfall of nations. Other than feeling emotional in their hearts, they also sincerely wished that sect leader Jun and Madame Jun would grow old together and give birth to a son soon. Speaking of having a child soon, the fertility formula provided by Gu Tianqing seemed to have been forgotten in the corner of the spatial ring. Would it come in handy in the future? Chapter 2002. 1,000 years later. The Eternal Realm was completely formed. The central area was guarded by the Eternal Realm, surrounded by various large planes, forming rings after rings. In order to distinguish, Jun Changzhao divided them into levels, from 1 to 9. The lower the number, the lower the level, and the higher the number, the higher the level. For example, the outermost was a proper first-level plane. It couldn't be helped. They were all continents that moved from the lower realm. Because they didn't have the same starting line, they could only be ranked the lowest. Jun Changzhao made full use of the tree of origin to connect all the planes of the Eternal Realm, and set a certain level of heaven and earth attributes in each ring. If there were low-level planes that could develop in the future, they would be qualified to enter the higher areas and enjoy better treatment. Of course. If the higher planes didn't want to improve, they would naturally be gradually marginalized. This policy seemed a little cruel, but Jun Changzhao had to implement it. Because if the planes and warriors wanted to be strong, they needed enough motivation. He even made a rule that the planes could attack each other. Instead of raising them like flowers in a greenhouse, it was better to let them experience the wind and rain. And then? That's it. Yuan Gongzi's mouth twitched and said, Patriarch, if you let the major planes attack each other and wantonly plunder, the eternal realm system will collapse sooner or later. That's a matter for the future. I can't care about it, Jun Changshao said. In any case, he was the creator of the eternal realm. This was too irresponsible. No. Yuan Gongzi said, it has to be changed. How? I understand what the patriarch means. He's afraid that they'll be too comfortable, so he allows them to kill each other. But if the drug is too strong, it'll be counterproductive. Why don't we set a fixed year to start the war, and a truce for the rest of the time? Okay. Jun Changshao patted him on the shoulder and said, I'll leave it to you. I'm going out. Leaving again? Yuan Gongzi was about to cry. It had been 1,000 years since the patriarch got married. He threw all the domestic affairs to him, and the couple often went out to play. Sigh. Jun Changshao said, I also have my own difficulties. Isn't it just having a child? Yuan Gongzi said, it's not a big deal. Jun Changshao roared, it's been 1,000 years and there's still no news. How can I not be anxious? Yuan Gongzi hurriedly comforted her, Senior Gu has wanted a child for tens of thousands of years. The patriarch and madam are still young, so there's no need to pursue it. Just let nature take its course. Bullshit. Jun Changshao said, being suppressed by the heavenly Tao, it's impossible to let nature take its course. Senior Gu, where's the formula for giving birth to children? Is the patriarch useless? Yuan Gongzi asked. Speaking of this formula, he still remembered that Go Sheng had casually thrown it into his spatial ring with a look of disdain. AI. Jun Changshao sighed, the herbs listed in the formula are too rare. This king has turned the entire eternal domain upside down over the years, but there are still several herbs that I haven't found. Yuan Gongzi was silent. It was too miserable. No matter what, he couldn't find a wife in the future. Let's not talk about it. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, I'll leave the sect to you for now. This king will continue to look for herbs. Leaving the main hall and returning to his courtyard, Rose of Flowers was trimming the roses. Because she had become a wife, her temperament was more graceful and luxurious than before. Let's go. Jun Changshao shouted. The entire star field has been searched, where else can we go? Rose of Flowers said. Jun Changshao thought for a moment and said, to another universe. It's not dangerous, right? Rose of Flowers was a little worried. Although she also wanted a child, this kind of thing was destined, so she could only let nature take its course. Your husband is the eternal domain master. How can there be danger in another universe? Jun Changshao said proudly. Listen to father. Rose of Flowers said, there are many powerhouses in other universes. With your temper, I'm afraid you'll get into trouble again. Impossible. Jun Changshao said, this time, I'm only going to look for herbs. Hee hee. The system laughed, who would believe that? Okay. Rose of Flowers put down the scissors and said, then let's go out and take a look. Let's go. Jun Changshao picked her up and disappeared in a stream of light. Now. Of course. Sigh. Su Xiaomua held his chin and said, the patriarch leaves full of hope every time, and returns full of disappointment every time. Yes. Li Qingyang agreed. The two brothers had melancholy on their faces, and even their expressions were synchronized. Not long after Jun Changshao and Rose of Flowers got married, Li Qingyang and Su Xiaomua held their weddings one after another. Although the scale was not as big as the patriarch's, it still shocked the eternal domain. All the major forces brought money to congratulate them. The main point was one after another. Not two couples got married at the same time. If they got married together, there was only one share of money, so naturally, they had to be separated. This was hard for all sides. In 1,000 years, just the amount of money had changed countless times. Today, it was not this disciple's wedding, tomorrow it was that disciple's wedding. Since Li Qingyang and Su Xiaomao got married, the problem that troubled them was the same as Jun Changxiao's. Due to the suppression of the heavenly Tao, it was too difficult to have a child. Go Sheng could not have a child because Rose of Flowers had a long lifespan. Sister Qiao and Xia Shuiyun were both of normal age. Why was it so difficult? Because Li Qingyang and Su Xiaomao had both reached the divine secret realm. Even if their ages were suitable, they could not escape the suppression. To put it bluntly, the higher the realm, the harder it was to have a child. There was still no news from their wives. Li Qingyang and Su Xiaomao must be anxious, so they could only hope that the patriarch could find the ingredients and refine a few more. Good. There were many disciples in the sect of all times who suffered from this and that illness. Jun Changxiao left with Rose of Flowers this time, shouldering the heavy responsibility of the entire sect's future prosperity. Speaking of children, it had to be mentioned Yi Xingchen. The patriarch and his fellow sect members were worried about this matter, and he had it early. It had to be said that it was a great fortune. However, in these 1,000 years, Night Emperor did not have a happy time. Yes, he had a child, but it was still in his mother's womb. He wanted to, but couldn't. He wanted to, but couldn't. The sect of all times was a gathering place for weirdos. Ah. At this time, a howl came from the back mountain. The disciples looked back and saw Hewudi hugging his head and walking around the tree of universe's origin. Again. Does he feel uncomfortable if he doesn't shout twice a day? Su Xiaomao and Li Fei squatted in the distance and muttered. Junior brother, he has been studying how to open the door of eternal life all these years. Looking at the current situation, I'm afraid it will become a living series. Everyone shook their heads and busied themselves. Because they were used to it, No. Hewudi walked around the tree of universe's origin a few more times, then sat cross-legged on the ground, took out a remnant scroll, and studied it carefully. Definitely not. Ah. He raised his head and shouted, it's too difficult. Chapter 2003. Whoosh whoosh. At the western end of the eternal domain, the space overlapped and the wind howled. This was the edge of the universe, similar to the distortion belt that existed between the major galaxies in the past. Hold on tight. Jun Changxiao said, it might be a little troublesome. Rose of Flowers leaned into her husband's arms and hugged his waist tightly. Although it's a little inauspicious, I still have to say that showing off love will lead to a quick death. Whoosh! Jun Changxiao hugged Rose of Flowers and turned into a red stream of light, instantly flying into the overlapped space. Against the terrifying tearing feeling, he moved forward quickly. According to his father, as long as he passed through this space distortion belt, he could reach another universe. Speaking of his father, he had to mention the red-haired man. Although the main text had already ended, even if there was an extra meaning now, it still didn't deserve a name. It was a little tragic. Jun Changxiao's purpose of going to another universe this time was not to see the outside world, nor to find experts to exchange pointers, but to find medicinal herbs. As the saying goes, there are 3 unfilial things, and having no children is the worst. Since he had already established a family, he must think of a way to have children. What's more, he had thought many times that he had been developing the sect in this life and had been working hard to become stronger. He had to provide a superior life for his descendants, so he had to be strong from the start. Boom! Boom! In the space distortion belt, thunder and lightning erupted, trying to stop the couple's unruly behavior of crossing the universe, but the effect was better than nothing. 1,000 years ago, Jun Changxiao had already reached the peak of the divine mystery realm. 1,000 years later, the increase in strength would be even more obvious, especially in the use of the power of the immortal sound. It could be said that he had reached perfection. Of course. This was the highest point that could be absorbed and comprehended at present. In fact, as long as he didn't enter the land of eternal life, there was almost no room for improvement. Whoosh! About half a month later, Jun Changshao hugged rows of flowers and successfully passed through the separation belt between the two universes, successfully arriving at another universe system. The red-haired man had once said that other universes had different martial arts, and when he just stabilized his body and felt the attributes of this area, he really found that it was different from the eternal domain. Although there were many changes, it was still the same. After getting used to it a little, he would be able to understand it. Where are we going? Rows of Flowers was still in his arms, seemingly unwilling to come down. For the past half a month, the cameras had been focused on the two of them. The extent of their love for each other all day long had broken the hearts of many single people. Don't mind it. Just get used to it. I'm just strolling around. Jun Changshao didn't have a specific location. He determined a direction based on his feelings and flew away with her in his arms. He decided to first find a plane to understand this new universe and its pharmacology system. He wanted to see if he could find the herbs that matched the formula. Boom! Boom! However, not long after they walked, they vaguely heard the sound of explosions. Jun Changshao was, after all, a veteran of the Jianghu. He immediately deduced, someone is fighting, and their level is not low. Go. Let's go take a look. Rows of Flowers hurriedly advised, let's find a place to stay first. She was afraid that her husband would cause trouble since he had just arrived. Judging from the energy waves, the two combatants are probably at the half-step Fecta level. We can go and mediate the fight. We can also get information about this universe from them, Jun Changshao said. Rows of Flowers rolled her sexy eyes. Are you trying to get information? You're just looking for trouble. Don't say it. Asking for information was just Jun Changshao's excuse. He mainly wanted to see how the experts of this universe fought. A wife knows a dog best. This saying was absolutely correct. Boom! Boom! In an area where space had collapsed, several half-step Fecta realm rankers were fighting. From the eruption of the heaven and earth attribute and the use of martial skills, it was obvious that they were different from the eternal realm. Moreover, the battle reached its climax. Someone even let out a loud roar and summoned a huge monster. Old Sang, you're using your soul beast so soon. An old man sneered. Humph. The old man who seemed to have summoned an ancient soul beast said coldly, the 9 seals palm that was found in the ancient tomb is not in my hands. Don't be so aggressive. Thousands of people entered the ancient tomb, and you're the only one who came out alive. You still want to quibble? Another person said coldly. If you want to live, hand over the 9 seals palm. The only old woman among the 4 said hoarsely. From this, it could be seen that these 3 people were in cahoots. For some kind of martial arts secret manual, they were collectively targeting the old man who summoned the soul beast. Sure enough. No matter where. As long as there were treasures, they would be targeted. Jun Changshao, who was rushing over, heard their conversation and his expression became interesting. This 9 seals palm was a little familiar. Fuck. Wasn't it the martial skill that he exchanged for with a lot of trash martial arts in the cultivation method pavilion? Considering the origins of many things, Jun Changshao thought to himself, could it be that it was stolen from this universe? Impossible. The system said, maybe it's just the same name. That's true. The universe was so big, and there were as many martial arts as the eternal sands. Maybe there was the same one. How many times have I said it? The old man said angrily, this old man found the 9 seals palm in the ancient tomb, but before I could touch it, it disappeared into thin air. Hearing this, Jun Changshao roared, "It must be the system that stole it." The system was silent. "Do you think we will believe you?" The three of them looked at each other and seemed to have reached a consensus. They increased the intensity and rhythm of their attacks, obviously wanting to take the other party down first before carefully interrogating the secret manual. Die. The old man was not to be trifled with. He controlled the huge soul beast to fight. This person is strong, but it is difficult for two fists to fight against so many fists. It is only a matter of time before he is defeated. Jun Changshao stopped and watched from afar, looking like a martial arts grandmaster. In the past, he relied on the system. Now, his strength had reached a terrifying level. Naturally, he did not need to rely on any tools to spy on the strengths and weaknesses of others and give a comprehensive analysis. What did this mean? It meant that after a long period of cheating, he had become a master. Lightning demonic seal. Reckless spirit saber. Celestial dipper sacred blast. The three experts executed martial arts moves that seemed to be born at the same time, launching a series of attacks at the huge soul beast. The latter was outnumbered and was first forced to retreat before finally collapsing into nothingness. Pooh! Sang Qingtian spat out a mouthful of blood, his face extremely pale. Good chance. Seeing this, the three experts charged over from three directions. All kinds of energy gathered to form an inescapable net. Sang Qingtian knew that he could not escape. He steeled his heart and was about to ignite his soul. However, someone suddenly pressed on his shoulder, cutting off the thought that was spreading through his arteries to his sea of consciousness. When the three experts saw a young man appear behind their target, a surprised expression appeared on their faces. However, the situation was already like an arrow on the bow, so they could only continue attacking. Everyone. Jun Changshao pressed on Sang Qingtian's shoulder, stopping him from self-destructing. Then, he looked forward and said with a smile, "Give me some face." These 4 words seemed to contain some kind of magic. Not only did they control the powerful pressure, but they also controlled the 3 experts. The entire space suddenly became as quiet as a painting. It will not be long, and I can't guarantee that I will update it every day. After all, I will spend more time and energy on the new book. At the same time, I will take the opportunity to rest. From the transcendent god monster to the strongest sect of all ages, I have been updating continuously for more than 4 years. Chapter 2004. Jun Changshao would definitely be involved in a lively place. Hence, he made a move. The main reason was that he felt a little embarrassed. After all, the Universe 9 Seals Palms was stolen by the system and Sang Qingtian was the scapegoat. Sigh. In the distance, rows of flowers held her forehead and said, "We're in trouble again." With her husband's strength, it wasn't a problem to deal with 3 experts. However, if he acted rashly, it would be easy to offend the faction behind them. "Who are you?" Although the old woman's body was being controlled, her tone was unusually cold. Her words also had another meaning. Why should she give you face? It was normal. Gosheng didn't have any face. He was from another place. Why should they give him face? Passerby. Jun Changshao said, "I can't stand you guys bullying me with numbers." 3 against 1 was indeed a little too much. As a member of the pugilistic world, even if the system didn't steal the secret manual, he would still help. Furthermore, the matter was already very obvious. They were here for the secret manual, but Sang Qingtian didn't get it. Yet, they still attacked him unreasonably. It was a little too much. "Kid," the controlled old man said in a low voice, "you're on a narrow path." "Friend," Sang Qingtian said, "this is a grudge between me and them. Since you're passing by, please leave." Don't get involved in karma because of me and get yourself killed. This person was still alright. Sorry. Jun Changshao said, you and I already have karma. Sang Qingtian was puzzled. Although the young man in front of him had an imposing appearance, he was sure that he had never seen him before. How could there be karma? You went to the ancient tomb to look for the secret manual, and I took it away. That's the cause. Now that we've met in the vast universe, that's the effect, Jun Changshao said. What? Sang Qingtian was shocked. You took the secret manual? This voice also contained a trace of anger. After all, because of the 9 seals heaven and earth palms, he had been bitterly hunted down by them for dozens of years, and his days had been filled with uncertainty. Phew! At this moment, Jun Changshao withdrew his pressure, allowing the 3 people to regain their freedom. Then, he leaped into the air and his right hand cut through the void as he shouted, Spirit Seal Technique. Brahma Seal Style. Extreme Seal. Boom. 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 He struck out 9 consecutive palms, each of them explosively shattering the void. Seeing this, Sang Qingtian was shocked. Not only did this guy take away the secret manual, he even cultivated it to such a level. The other 3 were also dumbfounded. They could tell that Jun Changshao was trying to prove to them that he had cultivated the 9 seals of the cosmos palms. However, he was able to unleash an earth-shattering power in such a casual manner. His strength must be unfathomable. There was such a person in Lintianyu. They frantically mobilized the memories and information in their sea of consciousness, hoping to find an identity that matched the young man, but in the end, they found nothing. 3. Jun Changshao withdrew his spiritual energy and clasped his hands behind his back like a martial arts master. He said, this old man left the secret manual in the ancient tomb in the hope that a fated person would be able to inherit it. In the end, no one obtained it, so I had to take it back. Don't make things difficult for this child. This old man. Baby. The 3 of them looked at each other and immediately confirmed that although this person looked young, his actual age might be older than them. And there was another thing. He was the one who left the 9 seals of the cosmos palms in the ancient tomb. Could it be? Sang Qingtian said with trembling hands, Senior is. Perfected Qiankuan. Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed and said, what a nostalgic name. His expression and words were equivalent to an indirect admission. The expressions of the 2 men and 1 woman changed drastically, and the confusion in their hearts was suddenly solved. So, this young man was once a peak powerhouse. Perfected Qiankuan was a peak powerhouse in Lintianyu, which was the 32nd universe. He was active 100,000 years ago and could be considered a legend that shook the universe. It was said that he peeked into the secrets of heaven and stepped into the land of eternal life. Not to mention who was stronger, in terms of seniority and prestige, he was basically equivalent to the 7 profound sage in the past. Jun Changshao was also amazing. He had just arrived and already pretended to be such a person. The most shocking thing was that the 4 powerhouses present, who could be considered as reputable, actually believed him. Damn it. This was too retarded. In fact, they believed him for a reason. Firstly, Jun Changshao was very strong, similar to perfected Qiankuan in the past. Secondly, the 9 seals of the cosmos palms was one of the martial arts created by perfected Qiankuan. No one had inherited it before, but he could use it to perfection. Sigh. This martial art was casually comprehended by this old man when I was seeking the Tao. I left it in the ancient tomb to wait for the fated person, but I didn't know that it had harmed so many lives. It is a sin, a sin. He tue. The system really couldn't take it anymore. Today, this old man took back the secret manual. If you want to find it, you don't have to find anyone else. You can find this old man. Jun Changshao said. It was very obvious. This guy deliberately pretended to be a big shot to get Sang Qingtian out of trouble. The three of them were at a loss. Still not leaving? Waiting to drink tea? Jun Changxiao's eyes suddenly became sharp. Goodbye. The three of them broke out in cold sweat and hurriedly left. Just a glance made them feel as if they were in the abyss. Even if they questioned perfected Qianquan's identity, they didn't dare to make a move. However, this was shocking news. They had to quickly inform their own forces. After watching them leave, Sang Qingtian hurriedly turned around and bowed. Thank you for saving me, senior. No need to thank me. Jun Changxiao said, you and I are fated. Sang Qingtian was overjoyed. To be fated with such a top expert was definitely a blessing. However, after hesitating for a moment, Sang Qingtian said with difficulty, I heard that senior entered the land of eternal life. Why are you still in the Lin Tian region? Jun Changxiao obtained two good pieces of information from his words. 1. This was the Lin Tian region. 2. This universe also knew about the land of eternal life. Sigh. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, the land of eternal life is a secret that we have been exploring for eternity. How can it be so easy to enter? Sang Qingtian was enlightened. Senior Qianquan didn't enter the land of eternal life. The rumors were just groundless rumors. Child. Jun Changxiao said, I've been in seclusion for 100,000 years. Things have changed and people have changed. I wonder if the blessed grotto heaven I used for cultivation back then still exists. Reporting to senior. Sang Qingtian said hurriedly, your Qianquan cave abode is still around. It is now a sacred ground that junior martial artists worship. Oh. Jun Changxiao said, then don't go back. Speaking of which, how did he even know about the Qianquan cave abode? Wasn't it because it was written in the secret manual? Pretending to be a mighty figure wasn't done on a whim, but because he had absolute confidence. Unless his true body appeared, unless there were relatives or friends that he had met before, it was almost impossible for him to be exposed given his strength and comprehension of palm techniques. This incident taught them that when top experts left behind treasures, they must never write their experiences down. Otherwise, it would be easy for Go Sheng to seize the opportunity. After leaving for tens of thousands of years, I no longer have a home when I return. Jun Changxiao looked up at the sky and sighed, his eyes filled with vicissitudes. In terms of acting, Go Sheng could be said to be a master at it. Sang Qingtian savored it carefully and instantly gained something in his heart and soul. He was secretly shocked. As expected of a legendary mighty figure. Even his words contained profound mysteries. Senior. He said, if you don't mind, please follow me to the Extreme Heroes world and stay there for a few days. This, Jun Changxiao pretended to consider and said, all right. Sang Qingtian was so excited that he almost beat his chest and roared. If this legendary figure could come to the plane he lived in, it would definitely be a blessing of 3 lifetimes. Jun Changxiao brought the rows of flowers to the Extreme Heroes world as Jinren Qianquan. Senior. On the way, Sang Qingtian asked, this is? The woman that I love the most. So it's Senior Qinghong. Sorry for the disrespect. It was rumored that Jinren Qianquan and Qinghong were childhood sweethearts. After they got married, they were like shadows and were very loving. They were the model of a married couple. This impersonation was flawless. Of course. Jun Changxiao was not doing this to show off his acting skills. The purpose of impersonating Jinren Qianquan was very simple. It was to find out about the situation in this universe and find the herbs in the formula. It was too troublesome to search the planes one by one. He might as well use the name of a legendary figure and mobilize the power of the entire universe to help him search. What a sneaky plan. Needless to say. Just as Go Sheng was on the way to the Extreme Heroes world, the 3 people who escaped had already sent the news to their respective forces. The news of Zhenren Qianquan's appearance spread across the entire Lin Tian region, causing a huge commotion. Report. Sang Qingtian has returned to the Extreme Heroes world. Report. There's a young couple accompanying him. Report. The young man is exactly as described by the three elders. He should be Senior Zhenren Qianquan. Once this news was out, from a god's perspective, one could see many powerful figures, Dharma treasures, and battleships flying out from various planes and surging towards the Extreme Heroes world. Jun Changxiao's trip to the other universes this time was destined to not be an ordinary one, as he had already alarmed the various powers upon his arrival. Chapter 2005. Extreme Heroes World. It was a relatively high-level plane. At this moment, Jun Changxiao followed Sang Qingtian to stay here temporarily, smoothly understanding their local customs, martial arts, and medicinal herbs. First was the realm. This universe was divided into three types, namely the human realm, the earth realm, and the highest heaven realm. Each realm was divided into early, middle, and peak. It was said that after reaching the peak of the heaven realm, one could enter the land of eternal life. In that case, Jun Changxiao said, my current strength is equivalent to the peak of the heaven realm. Of course. Lin Tianyu still had many realms. But in front of Go Sheng, it was difficult to be elegant, so there was no need to elaborate. In short, the three levels of human, earth, and heaven corresponded to the eternal domain's core realm, truth-seeking realm, and divine secret realm. The other universes should be similar. The names were random, and the effects were similar. To this, Jun Changxiao was speechless. What was the use of having a good name? It was better to simply divide them into levels 1 to 999. So, the system roared, this is the reason why he divided the levels of the eternal domain into numbers. As mentioned earlier, Jun Changxiao integrated the upper universe and redivided the realms. That's right, it was the simplest level 1 to 999. There were no fancy names, no complicated divisions such as high, middle, and low. It was just a numerical level. According to Go Sheng's realm setting, he was already level 999 in the eternal domain, a max level account. If he did not open a new map or dungeon, he would be invincible. As for the upper echelons and core disciples of the sect of all times, most of them were around level 800, still some time away from the max level. A good domain. It was turned into an online game. No wonder the system couldn't help but roar. However, what was even worse was the division of medicinal herbs and treasures, which were also divided into levels 1 to 999. It was not hard to imagine. Many years later, when the warriors of the eternal domain met, they would ask, brother, what's your level? What's the level of your equipment? I'm not talented. Level 666, weapon 666, treasure 666. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Another example was a certain organization announcing to the public that they had developed a brand new pill that could greatly increase spirit energy absorption, and its level was 888. Just thinking about it made him speechless. When Jun Changxiao was serious, he was super serious. When he was despicable, he was super despicable. Senior. Sang Qingtian stood in front of the study and carefully looked at the herbs recorded in the prescription. He said awkwardly, I don't know much about herbs, so I really don't know what is recorded in the prescription. Jun Changxiao felt depressed. He was a heavenly Dharma realm expert after all, but he did not know anything about herbs. Does anyone in your realm know? Jun Changxiao did not give up. Sang Qingtian replied, Senior, please wait for a moment. This junior will go and find a master who is proficient in medicinal herbs. He had already regarded Jun Changxiao as Zhenren Qianquan. Naturally, he did not dare to neglect him. He called all the medicinal masters of the extreme heroes world over as soon as possible. For a moment. 30 people were gathered in the elegant courtyard. From their age and attire, as well as the thick smell of medicinal herbs they exuded, it was easy to guess that they were masters of alchemy and medicine. What's the situation? I don't know. Senior sang, why did you call us here for no reason? Everyone was a little confused. Although Sang Qingtian was not the master of the extreme hero's world, he was still a top expert with the most authority. Now that he was invited over, they were really flattered. Senior. At this moment, Sang Qingtian cupped his fists toward the room and said, the alchemy masters of my world are all here. Everyone widened their eyes. A top expert like Senior Sang would actually call someone else a senior and act so respectfully. If they did not see it with their own eyes, it would be hard to believe. Creak. The door suddenly opened and a voice sounded, come in. Yes. Sang Qingtian turned around and gave the alchemy masters a look. Everyone hurriedly walked in carefully. They were cursing in their hearts. Who exactly was in the room? Fuck. A young man. After more than 30 alchemy masters entered, they saw Jun Changshao sitting on a chair with his eyes closed. Their expressions were immediately interesting. From his skin and color, he was definitely not over 100 years old. Was such a young man worthy of being called a senior by Sang Qingtian? Although everyone was doubtful, they still acted respectfully. Child. Jun Changshao said, let them take a look at the prescription. Senior Sang was at least 10,000 years old, and he actually called him a child. Yes. Sang Qingtian took out the prescription and said, come and see if you have any understanding of the herbs recorded here. If you can find or provide any clues, I will definitely reward you greatly. When the alchemy masters heard the words will definitely reward you greatly, their eyes lit up. Then, they swarmed around the table. This, after reading it, they were all stunned. The alchemy masters present had thousands of years of experience, but they had never even heard of the herbs recorded here, let alone seen them. Jun Changshao naturally noticed from their expressions and could not help but feel a little disappointed. Sigh. Was it so difficult to have a child? Senior Sang. An alchemy master said bitterly, we know nothing about the herbs recorded here. Trash. Sang Qingtian shouted angrily. Forget it, forget it. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, these herbs are too rare. Only a few people know about them. You can't blame them. Senior, don't worry. Sang Qingtian said, I will do my best to find these herbs for you. The Ultimate Hero's world was a relatively traditional martial world. In the 32nd universe, there were many worlds that focused on alchemy. Perhaps he could find some clues. No rush. Jun Changshao said, take your time. This time, he was prepared to fight a protracted battle when he went out to find herbs, so he was very open-minded. In the following days, Jun Changshao brought rows of flowers to tour the Ultimate Hero's world, experiencing different customs and appreciating the wonders created by nature. This carefree life had been going on for thousands of years. Not only did the couple not feel bored, but they also enjoyed it. A patriarch and a patriarch's wife. They did not manage the sect and only cared about traveling. They really felt sorry for Deputy Patriarch Yuan Feng. One day, Jun Changshao, who was fishing leisurely by the lake, suddenly sensed that there were many powerful auras in the universe rushing towards the Ultimate Hero's world, so he smiled and said, they're here so soon. He pretended to be a legend of the Lin Tian region, so it would definitely cause a commotion and attract many forces. Just in time. Jun Changshao put away his fishing rod and said, I can ask about the herbs. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Not long after, the space above the Ultimate Hero's world gradually distorted. Streams of light and battleships drilled in as if they were in a hurry to be reincarnated. What's going on? The warriors on the plain were all stunned. They were living as usual and cultivating as usual. Suddenly, a large number of martial artists surged in, and their auras were extraordinary. This was really a bit confusing. The Realm Master of the Heavenly Heroes World. The Realm Master of the Vast Heroes World. The Realm Master of Sister Longying. The Realm Master of the Vast Heroes World. Hiss. Everyone saw the appearance of the newcomers clearly, and they were shocked to the extreme. These were all top figures of the Lin Tian region. Why did they suddenly come to the Ultimate Heroes world? Could it be that someone caused some big trouble and was targeted by the entire universe? Whoosh whoosh. Just as everyone was shocked, a vast and profound aura appeared, instantly enveloping the entire world, completely stabilizing the restless space. The Ultimate Heroes world had an upper limit. Now that so many big shots had suddenly come, they definitely couldn't withstand it. Jun Changshao stabilized the main world system with his cultivation. Even if there were still forces coming in wave after wave, they still couldn't shake it at all. This move really shocked the powerhouses of all worlds. Originally, they still had some doubts, but now they immediately dispelled them and obediently retracted their auras. They all cupped their hands and said, "Greetings, Senior Qian Kuan." So many realm masters of the Lin Tian region gathered in the Ultimate Heroes world and bowed to Jun Changshao, who was sitting by the lake. The scene was simply too shocking. Everyone. Jun Changshao stood up and said with his hands behind his back, "Please come down for a chat." He was very calm and had a very elegant demeanor. It was hard to imagine that this was a big slut from the Eternal region. Chapter 2006. My name is Red Phosphorus Lake. I'm a little panicked right now. That's because there are dozens of realm lords standing in front of me. They can evaporate the water in me with a single breath. Cough, cough. Sang Qingtian stood in front of Jun Changshao and raised his head slightly. In terms of seniority, he was lower than the realm lords, and in terms of strength, he was inferior. Now that the seniors were present, he was fearless and could even sit on equal footing with them. That was a great feeling. Senior Qian Kuan. A white-haired old man cupped his fists. I heard that you've entered the land of eternal life. Why have you suddenly returned? Let's not talk about that first. Jun Changshao said, let's talk about business first. With that, Sang Qingtian strode forward and placed the prescription on the stone table. Senior Qian Kuan needs to find the herbs listed here. I hope you can provide effective clues. Herbs. Everyone exchanged glances. Even though they were filled with doubts, they still released their spiritual consciousnesses to look at the herbs listed and fell into deep thought. Jun Changshao had been paying attention to their expressions the entire time. When he saw that they were all frowning, his heart turned cold. Sigh. It was too difficult. The system said, it's fine if you can't find it. At least you can save some chapters for your child. Senior Qian Kuan. The white-haired old man pondered for a moment and said, the herbs listed in this prescription should be found in the spirit medicine world. Oh. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. Senior. Sang Qingtian sent a voice transmission. The spirit medicine world is one of the most mysterious dimensions in the Lin Tian region. It said that there are countless herbs and heavenly treasures that can bring living beings back to life. Bring living beings back to life? Jun Changshao said, that's a little magical. Even though Go Sheng was invincible right now, he was still unable to bring living beings back to life. In fact, he could only rely on cheating to revive Xiao Ziji. Therefore, heavenly treasures that could bring living beings back to life were rather heaven-defying. Elder Lu's wife is still in the coffin. If we can find such a treasure, we might be able to revive her. At that thought, Jun Changshao asked, where is the spirit medicine world? This, the white-haired elder shook his head and said, this world is extremely mysterious. No one knows where it is, and only those who are fated can find it. Not bad. Sang Qingtian said, indeed. Are there any other clues? Jun Changshao asked. No. Everyone said helplessly. All right. Jun Changshao waved his hand, and several jars of fine wine appeared in front of the big shots out of thin air. He said, everyone has come from afar, so this old man doesn't have much to offer you. I only have this fine wine that I personally brewed. I hope you don't mind. For 1,000 years, Lan Kong had been brewing wine. He had even infused the power of immortal music into it, allowing drunken life and dreaming to make a qualitative leap. Furthermore, there were also quite a few series. For example, it was suitable for ordinary people to drink, suitable for middle and low-end martial artists to drink, and suitable for high-end martial artists to drink. The wine that Jun Changshao brought out was a high-end wine. If it was measured by the brand and value of the world, it would definitely be the Mao Tai of the martial arts world. This, looking at the wine jars in front of them, the experts from the various material planes hesitated. What if it was poisonous wine? If you don't drink, I'm going to take it away, Jun Changshao said. Drink, drink, drink. The white-haired old man opened the wine jar hurriedly, and the fragrance of the wine wafted through the forest. Everyone took a whiff and felt refreshed. Gulp. The white-haired old man did not care about his status and raised his head to drink the wine. The sweet wine entered his stomach. Under the stimulation of the power of immortal music, his consciousness and even his soul were deeply stimulated, allowing him to sense the profound mysteries hidden in the world. However, the alcohol was a little strong. The white-haired old man's face turned red and his body began to sway. He did not care about embarrassing himself in front of everyone and allowed the alcohol to stimulate his consciousness. He had already begun to comprehend the profound mysteries in a frenzy. The more engrossed he was, the more obvious he was drunk. The big shots of the various material planes waited for a while. Although the white-haired old man was a little drunk, he was shrouded in some sort of energy. Therefore, they opened the jars and drank. A moment later. In the forest outside Red Phosphorus Lake. The top big shots from various material planes were all swaying, and they were all in a drunken state. This drunkenness was nothing more than on the surface. In fact, they were currently in a particularly magical state. Once they woke up, they would definitely benefit greatly. As expected. A few hours later. Everyone woke up from their drunken state and stood in place, wild with joy. Drinking a mouthful of drunken dream did not allow them to break through, but the comprehension of the profound mysteries of heaven and earth was obvious. Even if they spent hundreds or thousands of years to comprehend on their own, they might not be able to achieve such an effect. This wine was heaven-defying. Everyone. This wine is called Drunken Dream. You can drink a mouthful every day to comprehend the profound mysteries of heaven and earth. Whoever can find the spiritual medicine world for me will be rewarded with 10 jars. Jun Changshao could not possibly search for it himself. After all, the universe was so big. If he prepared some benefits for them to search for it, they should be able to find it very quickly. We accept the order. The big shots of the various material planes who had experienced the benefits said in unison. They hurriedly put the unfinished drunken dream into their spatial rings and left excitedly. It was not hard to imagine. When they returned home, the 32nd universe would definitely be lively. As expected. A few days later. The various material planes and major forces began to move. Streaks of light and battleships spread out in all directions. Their mission was very simple. That was to find the spiritual medicine world and obtain 10 jars of drunken dream from Senior Qian Kuan. With their strength, ordinary treasures of heaven and earth could not bring about martial arts benefits, but magical wine could, so it was very precious and important. The effect is not bad. Jun Changshao was still traveling in the world of ultimate heroes, but he could still receive information from various realms. Thus, he rubbed his chin and said, after I return, I can ask Lan Kong to study it more. Perhaps I'll be able to get rich by living a drunken life. Schwa. He opened the system skillfully and refreshed the store. There was a fixed number of times every month, and Jun Changshao had formed a habit. In the past, there was nothing good. Until today, after the last refresh, an item appeared in the item column. It was called the map of the spiritual medicine world. It refreshed just like that. Jun Changshao hugged his head and collapsed. I gave out so many drunken dreams before, isn't it? That's right. The system gloated, the host suffered a loss. Chapter 2007. Just as the powerhouses of the Lin Tian region were searching for the medicine world for befuddlement, Jun Changshao had already relied on the shop to get the map. Cheating. Because the purchase required contribution points, this piece had already collapsed, so it was effortless to buy it. The map was a bit old, and from the touch, it was like a sheepskin scroll. Why would someone leave a map? Jun Changshao was a bit puzzled. Most of the things bought in the shop were stolen. This meant that someone should have deliberately left the map of the medicine world behind, as if they were afraid that they couldn't find the way. At this time, Jun Changshao found a small special text at the bottom left corner of the map, so he said, "Translate it for me." The system said, "No need to translate, this is a surprise." Jun Changshao roared, "Translate it for me, what the fuck is it called surprise, bah? Translate the text content." Oh. The system then understood and began to translate the text on the map, saying, "I once planted a kind of heaven and earth treasure called soul summoning fruit in the medicine world. Anyone who obtains this map can easily find it." Soul summoning fruit. Jun Changshao said in surprise, "Can it bring the dead back to life?" This judgment came from the word soul summoning. It should be. The system said. It was rare for the two of them to be on the same side, with the same thoughts, without bickering or ridiculing each other. It seems. Jun Changshao laughed, not only a map, but also a treasure map. After saying that, he studied it carefully. This map was a bit strange, without the usual boxes and bars, and without geographical location and coordinates, only a pentagon-like pattern, and a black dot in the center area. Jun Changshao held his chin and said, "It doesn't look like a map." Ah. After studying for a night, his head was about to explode. What's wrong? Rose of Flowers was awakened, got out of bed with her long hair in a mess, and stopped in front of Jun Changshao barefoot, habitually put her hand on her husband's shoulder, and there was still a trace of tiredness in her charming eyes. This damn lingering temperament, it was the easiest to make people's heart beat faster. It had to be said. Rose of Flowers was becoming more and more feminine. Jun Changshao was not bad-looking either. The children of these two people, regardless of whether it was a boy or a girl, would probably be at the level of a monster in terms of appearance. This map. Jun Changshao rubbed his temples and said, "I don't understand at all." Oh. Rose of Flowers gently leaned back and rested her chin on his head. She then looked at the map on the table and curiously asked, "Is there anything my husband doesn't understand?" Nonsense. Jun Changshao said, "There's a lot that I don't know." After 1,000 years of comprehension and cultivation, he realized that there was no end to martial arts. Although he had already reached the peak level, there were still many unknowns that he needed to explore. "Let me take a look." Rose of Flowers looked at it carefully and gave her opinion, "This is not like a map, but more like a scene." Scene? You don't say, it does smell like that. After being reminded by Rose of Flowers, Jun Changshao immediately realized that the pentagram was more like 5 natural scenes, or even 5 planes, arranged in a regular pattern around the black dot. I understand now. This is some star field. As long as we find the corresponding pentagram, we should be able to find the medicine world. Let's go. Let's hurry and find it. Jun Changshao pulled rows of flowers and was about to leave when the latter hurriedly said, "I'm still wearing my pajamas." This, in the living room, Sang Qingtian frowned. It was early in the morning, but he reeked of alcohol. That's right, he drank an entire bowl of drunken dream yesterday, and the smell of alcohol had yet to dissipate. "Senior," Sang Qingtian said, "this place, this junior has some impression. Bring me there." Since there were some clues, Jun Changshao could not wait to reach the destination in search for the herbs in the prescription. However, Sang Qingtian said, "This place is a top-secret forbidden area of the Lin Tian region. If you trespass, you will easily lose your life." Jun Changshao's eyes suddenly turned cold. "Are you doubting my strength?" Ga. Sang Qingtian was dumbfounded. "That's right. This is Senior Qian Kuan, a legendary expert. How can I measure him with the mentality of an ordinary person?" No. Sang Qingtian hurriedly explained, "This junior, no need to say any more." Jun Changshao said, "Bring me there quickly." Okay. Every universe had its own mysterious mystic realms or forbidden areas, and the Lin Tian region was no exception. In fact, there were more of them. Actually, mystic realms and forbidden areas were more like dungeons. Although they were full of danger, they were also accompanied by opportunities. Since ancient times, countless lives had died, but countless people had also soared. This was not. Under Sang Qingtian's lead, Jun Changshao stopped at the most dangerous forbidden area of the Lin Tian region, where opportunities and dangers coexisted. From God's perspective, there were 5 planes around the entrance. They faintly outlined the angle of a pentagram. That's right. Jun Changshao took out the sheepskin scroll. After a few comparisons, he said, "This is the place. Let's go. Let's go in." Sang Qingtian took a deep breath and was about to follow when Jun Changshao added, "Wait outside." All right. He really did not go. He stood at the door and watched the two of them walk in until their figures completely disappeared into the darkness. His eyes were filled with joy and worry. He was happy that he did not have to enter the forbidden area and risk his life. He was worried that he could not witness Senior Qian Kun creating the forbidden area with his own eyes. Sigh. Sang Qingtian sighed. "I'm conflicted." The inside of the forbidden area was a passageway. The surrounding space was distorted, and it felt like they were passing through time. What had Jun Changshao and rows of flowers not seen before? Therefore, they were already used to it. They did not even feel the slightest ripple in their hearts as they walked. After walking for about an hour, there was a white light at the end. When the two of them passed through, they stopped at a place that looked like a cliff. "There's no path," Jun Changshao said in surprise. "Husband." Rows of flowers pointed to the wall at the side and asked, "What's that?" Jun Changshao looked over and found a square pit in the middle of the wall. It looked like some kind of secret compartment, but also like, wait. Why did it match the size and specifications of the sheepskin scroll so well? Jun Changshao walked over, hurriedly took out the map, and carefully stuck it on. Needless to say, it was indeed very compatible. Buzz. At this moment, the wall and ground suddenly shook, and waves of heat surged out from below the cliff. Roar! A deafening roar came from below the cliff, giving off the feeling that it came from the depths of hell. "Back off." Jun Changshao frowned. Rows of flowers stood behind him obediently. Although the surrounding atmosphere was slightly oppressive, she was not worried at all. She was even curious if there was some kind of special demon beast hidden here. Whoosh whoosh. At this moment, demonic aura spread out from below the cliff. Soon, they saw a huge head rushing up, followed by 2 arms and a body. Finally, it was like a mountain in front of the two of them. In terms of form, it looked like a giant, but in terms of color and facial features, it was closer to a demon. Humans. The monster said coldly, "You are courting death." No. Why are the eyes of the young man who is as weak as an ant shining? Rows of Flowers also noticed Jun Changxiao's expression, so she said speechlessly, "Such an ugly demon beast, are you going to capture it and make it a guardian beast?" You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.